Patty Vaughn disappeared on Wednesday, December 25th, 1996. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Patty Vaughn's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. When a dedicated mother's minivan is found abandoned on the side of the road, panic ensues.
She had been gone for more than 24 hours.
I kept thinking I was gonna look in one of those drainage ditches and Patty was gonna be in there.
Investigators soon find hints of foul play.
There was blood found in the van.
And then, a look into Patty Vaughn's past reveals a complicated love triangle.
They had a huge fight. She got angry, got in her van, and left.
Could problems in a relationship have led to murder?
I don't think anybody else has the motive or the opportunity.
You just can't focus on one person. We are going to solve this case.
It is Christmas Eve, 1996, near San Antonio, Texas, where the festive city streets are glowing with holiday cheer. At Lavernia United Methodist Church, 32-year-old mother of three Patty Vaughn performs for an intimate Christmas celebration.
Patty has probably been singing before she talked. She had just a very sweet, soothing voice, almost like a songbird. She really enjoyed it. You know, they just created such great music together.
Patty was very proud of her music group. Singing with them was one of the things in life that gave her peace.
Church was huge in Patty's life. Patty's relationship with God was right up there with her relationship with her children.
While Patty carols on the altar, her husband Jerry Ray Vaughn and their three young children watch from the pews. Although the Vaughn's marriage has been strained lately, they are committed to keeping their relationship amicable.
Patty would never complain. You look at her family, and it was cookies and cream. Everything was perfect.
But once the service ends, Patty and JR, who have been separated for over 2 months, part ways. Patty and the children head over to her aunt's house, where they will meet up with Patty's old flame, a man named Gary, while JR drives back to his apartment in San Antonio.
It was going to be a wonderful Christmas because we were going to have Patty and Gary and the children.
Patty Vaughn and Gary's relationship has a long and complicated history. Patty was 18 years old in 1982 when she met Gary. She fell in love with the young Texan after moving to San Antonio with her family.
They had mad, crazy love for each other back then.
They had quite a serious relationship, and I think had circumstances been different, I think they probably would have stayed together. But a few months after they had been seeing each other, his ex-girlfriend came to him and told him that she was pregnant with his child. And out of a sense of obligation, he broke it off with Patty. Patty was devastated, was totally devastated.
Emotionally scarred from the breakup, Patty kept herself busy. She was waiting tables while attending classes at a community college.
She was working at a little hamburger joint. JR came into the establishment. He was a little bit older than Patty. Then they had known each other for a couple of years and got married.
Patty and J.R. Vaughn were married on May 18, 1985. For 11 and a half years, the couple worked at making a life together. They had a family construction contracting business and 3 children. But despite many solid years together, by the fall of 1996, Patty realized she was unhappy.
She was being torn apart inside and everything was falling apart, but my brother best described it as her being a one-legged duck, smooth and graceful on top, but paddling like hell underneath.
Finally, on Columbus Day weekend 1996, Patty and Jerry Ray decided it was time to separate and reevaluate their marriage. By the end of October, JR had moved out of the family home in Lavernia and into an apartment in San Antonio.
She stayed in the family home. That was a mutual decision between Patty and JR, I think, at the time, for the sake of the children. And I remember when we knew that they really had separated. It was like the weight of the world had been lifted from her shoulders, and she was happy.
And then, just weeks after the separation, Patty confided in her cousin Kathy that she had been communicating again with the man who had captured her heart so many years earlier.
She had told me that Gary had divorced and that she was really excited because they were talking again.
I think it was just part of her remembering who she was, you know, remembering all the good stuff about herself.
When Patty, Gary, and her children arrive at Aunt Jean's house on Christmas Eve, the celebration has already begun. Patty worries how the new man in her life will be received.
Patty felt very guilty because she was still married to JR. And that part of her, that conscience, that moral issue was always there with her. Am I doing the right thing? Am I going to be called a bad mother?
But her family welcomes them both with open arms.
Basically, we all just always told her, you're a good person, you know what's right for your life, so just follow your heart.
As far as Christmas Eve at the house, I mean, it was perfect.
The party comes to an end around midnight. The family wishes each other a Merry Christmas and says their goodbyes.
Patty gave me a big old hug and said, okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And that was it. I mean, it was no different than any other night.
But unbeknownst to all, this is the last Christmas they will ever share together. Coming up, an explosive argument on Christmas Day tears a family apart.
She got angry, got in her van, and left.
After an 11-year marriage, Patty Vaughn and her husband JR have decided to split up. Although conflicted about her decision to separate, Patty has been seeing an old boyfriend. On Christmas Eve 1996, Patty openly shares her rekindled relationship with her extended family. All goes well. At the end of the night, the family exchanges hugs and wishes each other a Merry Christmas.
We really didn't make any plans for Christmas Day because we knew that her plans were to have JR over.
It's Christmas morning, and Patty's husband JR arrives at the family home around 8 o'clock. Despite their recent difficulties, Patty and JR have agreed that it's best to spend Christmas Day together as a family for the sake of their children.
He was to arrive early in the morning, do the Santa Claus thing with the children, and then they were having dinner with the Vaughn family at their home later in the afternoon.
If all goes well, Patty and her boyfriend Gary will spend time together Christmas night after the Vaughn clan leaves to go home. Her aunt will take care of her children.
She had made plans later to go to a movie, and we were supposed to babysit the children.
But Christmas Day turns to night, and Patty never shows up to drop off the kids as planned, nor does she call to cancel.
Wasn't surprised that I didn't hear from her and just figured with everything going on and with all of her in-laws coming over, I just figured maybe everything was going great and they were playing with the kids and having a nice dinner.
We really didn't panic a lot until my daughter got the phone call the next day.
The day after Christmas, Patty's cousin Kathy and her mother are at home when the phone rings. It's a call that will change their family's lives forever.
JR called me on the evening of the 26th. When I answered the phone, he immediately asked me what time it was, then asked me if I'd seen Patty.
JR tells her no one has heard from Patty for over 24 hours.
He said that she had been gone since the previous day, that they had had a huge fight, that they had been fighting off and on all day Christmas Day, and that she got angry, got in her van, and left. She had been gone for more than 24 hours, and we were just now finding out about it.
From what JR tells Kathy, He was not initially worried because he thought Patty had been with Gary. But then, JR breaks bewildering news to Kathy. He tells her Patty's minivan was found abandoned earlier that day, 17 miles from their home. The blue-gray Dodge Caravan was left on the side of the road with a flat tire. Patty's boss was heading back to work after lunch when he noticed the minivan sitting idly on the shoulder. He recognized the vehicle as Patty's and expected to find her at the office just 2 miles down the country road. But Patty wasn't there.
Nobody there had seen her. It was one of her bosses who had called JR and said, hey, Patty's van's sitting on the side of the road with a flat tire, and Patty didn't show up for work. They were concerned too, very concerned, because that was not like Patty to not come to work and not call.
He notified Patty's husband, Jerry Vaughn, who was, I guess, willing to meet him halfway to give him a set of keys to the van.
Patty's husband told her boss over the phone that he didn't have time to drive to where the minivan was found. He was on his way to file for divorce. His plan was to shock Patty into abandoning her relationship with Gary by presenting her with divorce papers. On his way to begin the proceedings, JR met Patty's boss to hand over the keys so the minivan could be moved.
Her employer just changed a flat tire, took it to the shop, and it was later found out that, nobody knew where Patty was.
Later that day, when Patty's cousin Kathy gets off the phone with JR, she shares the baffling news of Patty's departure with her mother. Right away, they are extremely concerned and start making frantic phone calls to track down Gary, the man Patty has been seeing.
He had not seen Patty since Christmas Eve night at our house. He was totally in a state of shock and immediately came to our house to offer to help in any way he could.
Whether Gary is being truthful or not, she is still missing.
There was obviously something wrong. Patty was missing.
Kathy calls the Bexar County Sheriff's Office to file a missing persons report. The family fears Patty might have been abducted after asking the wrong person for help on the side of the road. But since she has not yet been missing for 72 hours, there is not much police can do.
She hadn't been missing long enough. Her being over the age of 18, she can come and go as she pleases.
After several calls, police finally agreed to take a missing persons report over the phone. Then, feeling helpless, Kathy and a friend head out into the dark of night to the place on the side of the road where Patty's van was left with a flat tire.
Patty would have fought like heck if somebody had grabbed her, so there's got to be a shirt sleeve or a shoe or something somewhere, and so we just walked with the flashlight out there looking. Honestly, I kept thinking I was going to look in one of those drainage ditches and Patty was going to be in there. Maybe beat up, raped, I don't know, but she was going to be in there because it doesn't happen to your family.
Coming up, the search for Patty dramatically changes course after a startling discovery.
Somebody intentionally let the air out of that tire.
24 hours after Patty Vaughn's family sees her alive and well at a get-together on Christmas Eve, the 32-year-old mother is nowhere to be found. Jerry Ray Vaughn, Patty's estranged husband, was the last known person to see her on Christmas Day. He says she stormed out of the house after a volatile day of arguing. But Patty's extended family senses something is deeply wrong. They don't believe she would have left her 3 young children and not returned home.
These 3 children are her life, and she's gonna get mad enough to walk out and leave them? Not in a million years.
Jean, Patty's aunt, starts to make calls to see if anyone has heard from Patty since Christmas. She begins with Patty's immediate family living in Georgia and finds that Patty's youngest sister did indeed talk to her on Christmas Day.
I called her Christmas. It was probably about 10:30 Texas time.
JR answered the phone. Jeannie wished him a Merry Christmas, told him she loved him, and asked to speak to her sister, Patty.
He put Patty on the phone, and I could tell she had been crying, and she tried to tell me she had a cold, but I knew, I knew the difference, so I let it go.
Jeannie had formerly lived with Patty and JR and was very close to her sister's family.
He was a really nice guy. We had a good relationship. He was more of a brother than an in-law. I asked him to give me away at my wedding when I grew up, so.
But Jeannie was aware that Patty and JR's separation had not been easy. So when she heard the heaviness in her sister's voice on Christmas Day, she couldn't help but worry.
She assured me once again before we got off the phone that everything was fine, and that was the last time I talked to her.
That call only makes her family more concerned and desperate for answers. 2 days later, Patty's cousins, Barb and Kathy, head out to Quinney Electric, Patty's employer, where the minivan has been sitting since the previous day. But when the sisters inspect what is believed to be a blown-out tire, what they find changes the game in the search for their cousin.
Had Patty been driving to work down that road and gotten a blowout or a flat tire, there would have been some damage to the tire and to the rim. It was perfect. It looks like it went flat right where it sat.
To test their theory, the tire is reinflated. As they suspect, it holds air. Patty's cousin Kathy once again calls the police, who now agree to open an investigation before the 72-hour period passes. Investigator Adrian Ramirez, at the time an evidence technician, is one of the first to examine the car back in 1996.
The tire didn't appear to have any damage to it. It didn't have any kind of tearing on it. It didn't have any kind of markings on it, which led us to believe somebody intentionally let the air out of that tire.
It does not take long for the CSI team to conclude what they have on their hands is much more than a woman who voluntarily left her family.
The van was extremely clean, which caught our attention.
Considering the vehicle carts around 3 children under the age of 10, this cleanliness is a red flag.
The interior of the van appeared to be washed out, some type of detergent or water. There was water in the actual van itself. It was a colored, stained water. Samples were taken from all through the van.
Police suspect the muddied water in the van is tainted with blood, but they can't be sure. They submit samples for testing to the Bexar County Forensics Lab. Next, the investigators dust for fingerprints. The vehicle seems to have been wiped clean, but they eventually recover a single set of prints that are not Patty's. After checking local and national records, investigators cannot determine whom they belong to. While the Bexar County Police Department is involved in processing Patty's van, Jean, Kathy, and Barb are working non-stop to mobilize a search team. Patty's husband stays home to mind the children.
The first day, we had, I think, over 500 volunteers just through the local media.
By the end of the day on Friday, December 27th, hundreds of people have gathered at the location where Patty's van was found. Barb and her mother Jean head over to Patty's house to obtain scent articles for the search dogs. While there, Patty's cousin Barb has a brief encounter with Patty's 9-year-old daughter.
She ran out and hugged me, and she was very upset, and I said, "It's okay, we'll find your mommy."
As the clock ticks, Barb and Jean know the chances of Patty being found alive are fading fast. They head back to the search headquarters to deliver the scent articles.
They had some dogs that had a scent towards a pond and there where her van was found.
The handler follows her dog Vip to a small stock pond that's 50 feet wide and 3 feet deep. It's a place well hidden off the country road. Could someone have disposed of Patty's body here after dumping her car? The search begins at the pond.
They had the Bexar County Dive Team and other assistants from different organizations. Any search was conducted in the pond area.
We did drag the pond. There was nothing there.
Although the pond yields no new evidence, the search teams expand their hunt to the surrounding areas. No stone is left unturned.
Complete strangers came to help our family. I can't tell you how many trash cans we jumped in. Dump sites, quarries, places that you just would never think you would have to look for somebody that you care about.
On Sunday, December 29th, the official search for the missing mother of three ends. Coming up, a routine search of the Vaughn residence reveals a harrowing clue.
It was hard not to think that something horrible had happened in that house.
When Patty Vaughn's minivan is found with a flat tire on the side of the road, almost 24 hours after she is last seen, her family believes Patty might have been abducted. But it quickly becomes clear that the air was deliberately let out of the tire, and there appear to be traces of blood in the van. A 3-day search for the missing woman has turned up nothing. Investigators move quickly to question anyone in Patty's life who could have had motive to make her disappear.
In a case like this, you have to go in with an open mind. We strongly believe this was somebody that Patty knew, that Patty is very close to.
Investigators know that there are two very important men in Patty's life: J.R., her estranged husband, and Gary, Patty's former boyfriend, who is now back in her life. They start by questioning Gary. Police learn that Gary drove by Patty's house the day she went missing, when they weren't supposed to see each other until later that night.
He and his sister had been out driving for whatever reason, and he asked his sister if they could drive by Patty's house.
According to Patty's aunt, Gary says that he saw Patty's minivan and JR's truck in the driveway. The kids were out playing in the front yard. Is it possible that seeing the Vaughn family together on Christmas made him jealous? Patty's family says there is no way that Gary could be involved in Patty's disappearance.
We heard rumors that Patty had decided to reconcile with JR, and Gary couldn't stand that, so he had decided to do away with her. Just crazy scenarios. The fact that he was with his entire family all day Christmas and into the night, way after the hour that Patty supposedly left in her van, kind of blows a hole in that theory.
The first person that helped us look for her was Gary. He volunteered to the police, please give me a lie detector test. He was with us on almost every search. He helped pass out flyers. He was a big part of that.
Gary denies having a part in Patty's disappearance. He passes a polygraph and gives no reason for police to believe he is a suspect. But because of the nature of his relationship to Patty, it is impossible to rule him out entirely. His eventual death in a tragic car accident will keep police wondering.
Gary, like anybody else, has always been considered a person of interest.
As investigators dig deeper into Gary and Patty's relationship, they look into an incident that happened just 2 weeks before Patty went missing. It makes them concerned that more people, other than just JR or Gary, may have been upset with Patty Vaughn at the time of her disappearance.
A member of their church out in Lavernia had seen Patty having lunch with Gary at a Dairy Queen, a very romantic place to have lunch, and went back and reported to the minister at the church that Patty was a married woman, and he didn't think it was proper for a married woman to be having lunch with a man other than her husband.
Later that week, while rehearsing at church with her Christian folk singing group, Patty is publicly scorned because of her alleged infidelities.
The minister of the church called Patty in at choir practice one evening in front of all of the members and told her that she did not deserve to represent the church as a member of the singing group. That started a snowball in the community.
She had nothing to hide. She didn't think she did, until the church ostracized her like they did.
There was a lot of division from what we understand. Some opinion was that this friend that she had was not a good idea because she was still technically married. There's other opinion to where, well, they were already in the midst of a separation and going to get divorced. There were a lot of personal attacks on Patty, and that's something she had to struggle with.
While hundreds of volunteers continue to flock to the fields, searching for any sign of Patty, investigators are honing in on the Vaughn residence, the last place Patty was seen alive. The Bexar County Sheriff's Department Crime Scene Unit pays Jerry Ray Vaughn a visit later that day.
Jerry gave his consent to process the residence. Everything seemed to be normal. We then examined different areas of the interior of the residence.
The evidence technicians make their way through the Vaughn's home to search Patty and JR's bedroom. According to JR, Patty spent a good portion of the afternoon on Christmas Day in the bedroom, upset. The emotional upheaval started early on Christmas morning, soon after JR arrived. He says the fighting between him and his wife began over Patty's new relationship with her old boyfriend, and how it was spilling over into their family life.
He felt that it was wrong that his children be subjected to that, and they weren't even divorced.
As the fighting between JR and Patty escalated, it became increasingly clear that hosting the Vaughn family for Christmas was not the best idea. When JR's sister Marilyn and her son showed up for dinner, JR told them Patty wasn't feeling well and asked them to take the children over to his younger sister's house for Christmas dinner. When the children left with their aunt, Patty and JR remained in the house alone.
We believe that Patty and Jerry Vaughn needed some time to talk, and they're probably going to work on some things.
But according to JR, this was when the arguing turned into an all-out war, culminating with divorce threats.
He had threatened her that with what he had on her, not only could he take back control of his house, he could take his children too, and she would never see them again.
According to JR, his goal was to show Patty he meant business and that it was high time to stop exhibiting inappropriate behavior around their children.
Supposedly, she grabbed her purse and her keys and left. And nobody has seen any of those items.
There are no witnesses that have come forward that can tell us they saw Patty leave that residence.
JR believes Patty became the victim of foul play after she left the house. 4 days later, the CSI team enters Patty and JR's bedroom, one of the last places Patty was seen before she vanished. They notice several stained indentations in the linoleum floor and begin their testing with luminol, a chemical used to indicate the possible presence of blood. Relegated to a neighbor's yard, Patty's anxious family members look on from afar.
We knew that they were going to be doing the luminol test, and we wanted to be right there in case they found anything.
But according to police, JR's sister Marilyn is inside the house and interrupts the investigation with a barrage of questions.
That particular time when we first processed the residence, there was some type of interference with the sister. And she's being protective of her brother.
While one officer leads Marilyn out of the bedroom, the other continues the luminol testing. What he finds could be proof that something violent happened there. There are visible positive results in the master bedroom, closet, and bathroom. But knowing that luminol also detects cleaning detergents, it is impossible to say if the reaction is from blood or bleach.
Luminol not only reacts to blood, it also reacts to copper and other chemicals, such as bleach. So it is strictly a tool to help you search for any kind of biological evidence.
Then, according to police, further disruptions from JR's sister while examining the positive results in the bathroom caused them to leave. The next day, when the search continues, the evidence technicians return to the areas where the luminol test was positive. They then follow a trail on the bedroom floor to uncover a few drops of blood. A bucket and mop in the garage also test positive under luminol.
Some blood evidence had been found behind a baseboard of the master bedroom. It was hard not to think that something horrible had happened in that house.
But investigators cannot be sure. They must now prove the blood found in the van and in the house is in fact Patty's blood. And if it is, with only a small amount of blood discovered, it will be hard to prove a crime was committed in the Vaughn's home.
What makes it tough here also is that unless there is an abundance amount of blood at a crime scene, it doesn't give you the amount you need to consider a person deceased.
Patty's family isn't as cautious in its assessment of the evidence against JR.
The house was never cordoned off as a crime scene. When they found the blood in the home and the blood in the van and she was missing, they allowed JR and his sister Marilyn to be in the home while they searched. And there's something not right there.
Coming up, suspicions arise when tips flood in about one of JR's construction sites.
Some workers were pouring concrete and they wanted us to go away.
Young Texan mother Patty Vaughn has been missing 4 days, and police have probable cause to call it homicide. Blood found both in her minivan and behind a baseboard in her bedroom is a strong indicator to investigators that Patty has met a violent end. But just as the investigation into Patty Vaughn's disappearance seems to be heating up, there is a jurisdictional issue. Although the abandoned van was in Bexar County, the Vaughn house is not. Just weeks after Patty goes missing, former detective for the Wilson County Sheriff's Department, John Martinez, is handed the case. After reviewing the details of the investigation, he asks to speak to J.R. Vaughn.
The interview took approximately 4 hours. It was a roller coaster interview, a lot of discrepancies, a lot of voids. At the time of the interview, I was not convinced with any of Mr. Vaughn's answers.
It is becoming apparent to JR that people are beginning to point the finger at him as the reason why his wife is missing. He says he has no clue why there was blood in the van, since whatever happened to Patty transpired after she left the house Christmas night. As for the blood in the bedroom, he insists he has nothing to hide and has no idea where it came from.
Shortly thereafter, he retained an attorney and was advised never to give another statement. A polygraph was offered him, which he declined.
Knowing he might be the only surviving parent, JR says he feels he must protect himself at all costs.
I would say that Jerry Vaughn is one of our main persons of interest. It would have to take a serious amount of explaining as to questions we have regarding the incident on Christmas Day.
JR hasn't had to explain anything. JR's made all the rules.
There has been no explanation as to why the van was cleaned out and or the presence of blood at both scenes.
Although most people connected to the case believe that tests will soon verify the presence of Patty's blood, results are still pending. In the meantime, without any hard evidence against JR, police are unable to name him a suspect. But as the investigation continues, they receive information that makes them suspicious. 2 days before Patty goes missing, he makes plans to vacate his apartment. In a letter dated December 23rd, JR asks his landlord to break his lease. Although he tells police it was because the area felt unsafe, the timing of the letter makes them question his actions.
He moved back in the day Patty disappeared, and 3 days later her voice was changed on the voicemail, and his clothes were in the closet.
JR says his move back into the family home on December 25th was not planned. The heated fight between him and his wife pushed him to the limit. He told her to get out.
Supposedly, after she stormed out after a heated argument on Christmas night, he called a locksmith to change the locks.
JR was standing his ground, and he was going to take back what was his, which was his home and his children.
More than 3 months after Patty disappeared, police finally have the test results confirming that the blood found both in the van and the house has indeed been identified as Patty Vaughn's. But that is still not enough for an indictment.
There's not a body. There's no evidence that connects the two. And it's very hard to present that to a grand jury and try to make a case.
Nonetheless, JR's increasingly uncooperative behavior keeps family and investigators acutely alert.
We were not allowed back in the home, and we were allowed to see the children again.
The children were not allowed to be questioned, whether it be at the school or whether it be at the church. Their father made it a point when they attended Bible studies that he was there. As an investigator, it sends a red flag.
But JR says that police had not asked to question the children, and he has cut off contact with certain members of Patty's family because he is aware they think he might have harmed Patty.
He would not leave the house. He would not help us on the searches.
JR was getting members from the search parties to call him and give him updates, where you're searching, how long you're gonna be there, where you searching tomorrow.
You would think that a person would be more involved in a search. However, everybody reacts different. Some will help, some will decide to stay away and let the authorities do it.
According to JR, he was advised by a police officer to stay away from the searches. If anything tied to Patty was found, he would not want his DNA anywhere near the crime scene. As the investigation continues, police must keep an open mind. They continue to question people Patty knew and chase down every possible lead, which brings them back to the Vaughn's property.
One of the leads that we received was that the body could be in a septic tank on the property. We obtained a search warrant, evidentiary search warrant for the property. And after searching, it was inconclusive. We searched and talked to neighbors and so forth. No one heard anything, no one saw anything.
But then, weeks after Patty disappears, one tip stands out among the rest. A call has come in referencing an elementary school that was being built around the Christmas holidays, 45 miles from Lavernia in Pleasanton. The supervisor of the construction site was J.R. Vaughn.
Our office received information that Mr. Vaughn was a contractor, and they felt suspicious of some work that was being conducted right around the same time frame that this missing persons report came through.
We had found out where JR's job site was, and when we got there, there were some workers that were hired by JR that were pouring concrete, and they wanted us to go away.
We've talked to a couple of employees who had said that JR had done something that was totally out of character for him, and said that he would oversee the concrete trucks in certain areas pouring the concrete.
The information was that Ms. Vaughn might be in a cement slab because they found it odd that they were pouring cement at a certain time frame, certain date.
JR denies these claims and says the pour dates had been scheduled well in advance and executed as planned. Close to 4 months after Patty's family finds out about the school construction site, investigators bring in the Texas Rangers and a team from Dallas to use ground-penetrating radar. They check for any anomalies in the concrete, and they find them.
We bored some holes in cement, had a cadaver dog out there, and at the time, the cadaver dog did not alert on any suspicious odors. So that kind of turned out at the time as an inconclusive search.
Patty's family is not convinced the search was done thoroughly. They believe there's a good chance Patty's body could still be there.
You're not going to destroy a multi-million-dollar project that the county and the citizens paid for, no matter how many bodies might be buried here.
Following the Pleasanton school search, the case of the missing mother goes cold. Eight years after Patty goes missing, JR files for her death certificate. JR says he had Patty pronounced deceased because by that time he was legally permitted to do so. But when Patty's family finds out, they are devastated and file a wrongful death suit against JR. At stake is the payout from Patty's life insurance policy. On December 8th, 2005, the case is resolved. The life insurance money goes to Patty's children, and all claims against JR are denied. This defeat does not stop Patty's family from looking for her. They have continued to follow every lead on their own dime.
Our last big search, we dug up a huge portion of a field that's soon to be used as a cemetery plot. The tip was the land had been leased by the construction company that Jared was working for to dump excess, like concrete and trash.
Sooner or later, we'll find her, we'll find out what happened to her. We won't stop until we do, though.
Detective Adrian Ramirez and his partner have the same zeal for solving Patty's disappearance. Now cold case homicide detectives, the duo inherited the case in 2007 when it was returned to Bexar County from Wilson County.
We are going to keep working. We will continue for the sake of Patty's children and her loved ones. We are going to solve this case.
Meanwhile, J.R. Vaughn says that by concentrating on him as Patty's killer, the investigation into his wife's disappearance has taken a wrong turn from the beginning, allowing the real killer to have gotten away with murder. Despite the rift that Patty's disappearance has caused, J.R. and her family can agree on one truth. They all deserve to know why Patty was taken from them that fateful Christmas day.
We may never have the answers, but it won't be for lack of us trying. Because Patty deserved so much more. She was such a good person, such a good mother, such a good niece, cousin, sister, friend.
Patty was the one that kept everybody together. She just wanted to make everybody happy, you know? She really did.
She had so much light in her, and she had so much to give. And I just can't imagine what her life would have become had she been allowed to live it.
Rachel Louise Cook disappeared on Thursday, January 10th, 2002. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Rachel Cook's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. "19-year-old Rachel Cook returns to her small Texas hometown from San Diego for the holidays.
We were worried about her in San Diego. We thought that they'd have a crime rate.
While staying at her parents' house, she goes out for a run and disappears.
Never occurred to us that it would happen when she was at home.
Home's supposed to be safe, and it wasn't. Somebody has done something horrible to Rachel.
For years, investigators and family are tormented by the baffling case.
You have a person who basically vanished.
Being the parent of a missing person, there's a thing we say that it's one of the biggest clubs in the world, and it's one club you never want to join.
For the Cook family of Georgetown, Texas, Thursday, January 10th, 2002, begins like any other day. Robert, a software engineer, his wife Janet, an art teacher, and their youngest daughter Joanne, a high school student, eat breakfast and share plans. The only thing a little out of the ordinary this morning is the presence of the family's eldest daughter, Rachel, who is sprawled out asleep on a nearby couch. Rachel is visiting on her winter break from a college in San Diego.
She was sleeping on her couch while she was in town for my cousin's wedding.
Rachel has extended her stay in Texas to attend the wedding and has been driving her family crazy, asking them which of the many outfits she has brought home she should wear.
She couldn't decide, and she was asking everybody's opinion on which one. Of course, she'd end up using the one she wanted anyway, but she always asked.
She was very into fashion. My sister was kind of a fashionista in her own way. She loved shopping. It was one of her very favorite things to do.
On Christmas Day, She'd worn a new tan sweater with beaded trim.
She was like, yeah, this is my new sweater. I got it, it was $400, and my mouth just dropped open. I couldn't believe it, but that's kind of how she was.
We were supposed to go out that Thursday night, and we were so excited because I hadn't seen her in so long.
Shannon Leach hasn't seen much of her best friend since Rachel moved to California, but their relationship goes back a long way.
Rachel and I met probably, I think we were about 5 years old, and she was just one of those people you love to be around. She was funny and beautiful, just such a good person.
Rachel brought her new boyfriend home with her, but by New Year's, he'd already returned to California.
She told me how happy and in love with him that she was, and they seemed to get along really well, and she seemed very happy.
He was a super guy. He was very attentive to her, very sympathetic to her desires about her future, her dreams.
My sister told me that she really thought Greg was the one. She told me that she wanted to, eventually get engaged.
Rachel is planning to move in with Greg and enroll in a fashion design program once she returns.
I think she would have been very successful because she always had her own style on things. She was just always looked beautiful in whatever she did because she could create these outfits that nobody else could get away with, and it would just look amazing on her.
When she was 18, Rachel brought her fashion sense to the Miss Georgetown contest. She didn't win, but that didn't faze her.
Rachel normally wasn't into pageantry type things, but she decided her senior year that she was going to take part in that. And I think she really enjoyed the experience. As to winning, I don't think that was her real goal. I think it was just to take part.
She's very beautiful, and so men were always attracted to her. She was just one of those people that you wanted to be around all the time.
She just loved life, and she never could get enough done in a day. She had her whole life to do things.
On that Thursday morning, Rachel's father, Robert, leaves first. Her sister and mother say their goodbyes around 8 a.m. and head for school.
I walked over and told her goodbye, and she just kind of mumbled. So we said, good morning, goodbye, and we left for work.
Around an hour later, Rachel is awakened by a cell phone call from her boyfriend in San Diego. She tells him she is going to get up and go for her daily run in the neighborhood. Rachel says she misses him and will call him when she returns home after her jog.
She'd run 4 or 6 miles every day, so that was a good workout for her. It kept her in shape.
Athletic since childhood, Rachel has been an avid runner for most of her life.
She started running in elementary school, and she suddenly realized that she was beating almost all the boys, and she decided she wanted to do that, and she did long-distance track and cross-country.
Sometime after her phone call with her boyfriend ends, Rachel puts on her running clothes, grabs a portable radio and earphones, and goes out for her run. Her parents' ranch-style house is in a subdivision of Georgetown, Texas, a little north of Austin. Most homes sit on large lots of more than an acre and are set back from the road. On a workday, there isn't much traffic by foot or by car as Rachel jogs her usual route. She has been running here since she was a child.
She loved it out there, and I think she, in a way, missed it. She loved the excitement of California, but home's always home, too.
Hours later, when her family returns, Rachel is not home. And from the looks of things, she's never returned from her run at all. Coming up, surprise at Rachel's sudden disappearance turns to shock and then horror.
I knew something was terribly, terribly, terribly wrong.
Rachel was a hometown girl. She grew up here. She was raised here. Everybody knew her. And to our knowledge, and most of the agencies around here, there's never been a case like this.
"19-year-old Rachel Cook has gone out for her customary 6-mile run. Hours later, her father returns home and finds several of his daughter's dresses and shoes lined up in the living room. But Rachel isn't there. Her father notices that Rachel's cell phone is still at the house, as is her purse. Wondering where she could have gone without them, Robert calls Rachel's longtime friend, Shannon Leach.
He had asked me if I had talked to her, and I had said no, but we were planning on going out later, and he told me that she was gone, but that none of her stuff was gone. And everybody that knew Rachel knew she didn't go anywhere without her personal belongings, especially her makeup. So right then when he told me that, I started to get really worried.
Rachel's family is concerned too. Her mother phones Wildfire, a restaurant where Rachel sometimes works when she's in town.
They said she worked that night, so we thought, well, maybe she caught a ride to there and she was filling in for someone and she forgot to check her purse and her cell phone, and she'd be coming home any time.
But by morning, Rachel has not returned. Another call to the restaurant uncovers a mix-up. It was a different Rachel, not Rachel Cook, who had worked the night before. Now even more alarmed, her family surveys Rachel's extensive wardrobe and discovers that only her jogging outfit and running shoes are missing.
I knew something was terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. And all evidence looked like she'd gone out for a run and had not come home.
I decided that I was going to go out and drive Rachel's jogging path. I drove that really slow, looking to see maybe she got hit by a car and might have been laying on the side.
Janet Cook checks out the local hospital. It has been more than 24 hours since Rachel went out for her run and disappeared. Neither parent finds any sign of their daughter. As if in a dream, they head to the sheriff's office to report Rachel missing.
We received a report on January the 11th, 2002, from Robert and Janet Cook that their daughter Rachel Cook was missing. She had been unaccounted for already a day. Rachel was a hometown girl. She grew up here. She was raised here. Everybody knew her. To our knowledge, and most of the agencies around here, there's never been a case like this.
Georgetown is a classically quaint, old Texas town, surrounded by quiet residential neighborhoods and cattle ranches. Abductions were unheard of until Rachel Cook disappeared.
Nothing happens here. It's a small town. Everybody's friendly. You don't think that something like that could happen to you.
Her parents have been uneasy about Rachel living in the much larger city of San Diego, where she moved after high school.
We were worried about her in San Diego. We thought that they'd have a high crime rate. It never occurred to us that it would happen when she was at home.
Nothing ever happened to her there, and she comes home, and home's supposed to be safe, and it wasn't.
At first, Rachel's family believes the authorities are slow to respond to their missing person report.
I felt like the police didn't take it seriously enough, a little bit inclined to say, it's probably nothing, things like that don't happen here. She was a young girl, she probably just went out to go party and didn't tell people, because for the most part, that's what happens in Georgetown.
You said that she was off in Mexico, probably with her boyfriend, and that she'd be home any minute, and that was kind of discouraging.
We lost some valuable time because in an abduction, the first 48, 72 hours, that's your window right there. And we lost it.
When the Cooks don't hear back from police on Friday, they organize a search by friends and family for Saturday morning. When an investigator finally appears around noon on Saturday, he stops the search.
They were, I think, kind of astounded at how many people were out there But I think they were also freaking out because there were people just tromping around on what might be a crime scene.
The next day, an investigator from the legendary Texas Rangers joins the investigation.
I was contacted by the Williamson County Sheriff's Office on January the 13th of 2002. Pretty early on in the investigation, it was determined that it would be unlike Rachel's behavior just to go off and not tell anyone where she was, so it created suspicion.
And he told me he didn't think Rachel left on her own, so that made me feel a little bit more like I finally got to the right person. And so they started approaching it more like there was a problem.
An all-out official search involving volunteers and several agencies begins on Sunday, 4 days after Rachel vanishes.
We utilized everything we had. ATVs, horseback, helicopters, massive search parties. Brought in a search team called EquiSearch to help do the search with us so we'd have more manpower. Anywhere Rachel was known to have gone when she was at home, that area was searched.
But the searchers turn up nothing.
No sign of Rachel Cook or any of the clothing that she was possibly wearing.
Detectives struggle to set up a timeline of Rachel's last known movements. She was last seen by her mother and sister around 8 a.m. on Thursday. Cell phone records confirm her last phone call was with her boyfriend in California, ending at 9:15 a.m. When police canvassed the neighborhood, it turns out a number of neighbors caught sight of Rachel as she was jogging later that Thursday morning.
Two separate couples, they identified her and they described her clothing and her hair, and we believe that to be Rachel.
It was after 10 a.m. on Thursday when Rachel passed one couple out for their daily walk as she did her circuit around the neighborhood. Around 20 minutes later, she passed them again. A woman working in her yard with her daughter tells investigators she saw Rachel as she ran to the end of their cul-de-sac and did some stretches. The two exchange greetings, and Rachel continues on her run.
The last known sighting of Rachel Cook was a couple that actually knew the family, and around 10:45 they were pulling out of their driveway, and Rachel had run behind the vehicle. They had looked at her and did recognize that it was her running, and they saw her going towards her house. Their residence was about 200 yards from her residence, so they assumed that she was going home.
After that, Rachel Cook disappears as if into thin air.
There's no evidence that she actually arrived at the house.
So assumptions were that she was abducted during that jog from the neighborhood in which she lived.
It is an assumption that leaves little to go on and is of no comfort to her family. As the days go by with no sign of Rachel, her parents are devastated.
They were a wreck. They were both in tears, just not knowing what was going on and what had happened to Rachel.
Rachel's disappearance is a baffling mystery, a probable crime without a crime scene to investigate.
You have a person who basically vanished. We have absolutely no evidence of a crime scene at all. There's no evidence on the road, there's no evidence in the house, there's no evidence anywhere that anything even happened to her.
Coming up, Rachel's father takes a lie detector test.
I actually failed one question. They asked me if I knew where Rachel was. I said no, and unfortunately, I think I did.
Rachel Cook's disappearance shocks Central Texas. The official search ends after several days, but hundreds of volunteers helped the Cooks continue to look for their daughter for weeks.
When they'd come back, they'd feel so disappointed because they had not found her. They'd be in tears and very emotional about it.
Mounted search and recovery teams from Texas EquiSearch comb hundreds of square miles for evidence.
They turned in everything that was semi-suspicious to the sheriff's department.
I'd look around and think, oh my God, Rachel, look at all these people that care for you, baby. It just tore me up that so many people would come together for her.
Media attention brings a record number of tips to police.
There were hundreds of leads, if not thousands.
I have interviewed probably in the triple digits people that we have as a suspect or just a witness on this case.
Early on, investigators develop a lead. A suspicious car was seen by many in the neighborhood the day Rachel disappeared.
A white Camaro was seen in the area. We actually lost count of how many reports we had of white Camaros come into the tip line.
Witnesses report two young men in a white Camaro aimlessly circling the neighborhood. One report mentions a jogger in Rachel's age range near the Camaro. Another suggests a young woman possibly struggling in the car.
Investigators worked really hard to locate that particular car. Several were located and examined, but no evidence was found that actually linked Rachel to those particular vehicles.
Finally, the lead about the two young men in the Camaro comes to a dead end. It turns out to be a couple of teenagers playing hooky.
They admitted to us what they were doing in the area. Background search was completed on both of them. There was no evidence in their vehicle that we needed as far as DNA evidence or anything, and they were excluded as suspects in this case.
The Camaro isn't the only vehicle of interest. Sheriff's Department divers suit up and search the murky waters of Lake Georgetown, just a couple of miles down the road from the Cook home.
We had reports such as vehicles submerged here in the Lake Georgetown, and those were recovered from the lake and deemed to have been stolen earlier before her disappearance, so they were not related, so that was ruled out.
Composite sketches of unidentified males seen in the area are drawn up by police artists and distributed to the public.
Those, of course, went through the media, and no real good tips on those as far as who they might look like or anything such as that.
In addition to suspicious strangers, detectives examine people closer to home. Rachel's boyfriend, Greg, who flies back on Sunday to help with the search, is questioned as soon as he arrives.
Initially, I was involved in interviewing a present boyfriend of Rachel's from California.
Greg is given a lie detector test, even though phone records confirm that his call to Rachel the morning she disappeared was made from San Diego.
We were able to pretty much rule the gentleman out early in the investigation and continue our focus on other people.
Both of Rachel's parents also volunteered to take lie detector tests. Robert fails a question on his.
They asked me if I knew where Rachel was. I said no, and unfortunately, I think I do. I think she's in heaven. So I think that's why I didn't pass that one question on the quiz.
You start ruling out those people close to her. They were able to clear some people, some still remain people of interest.
One of Rachel's ex-boyfriends becomes a person of interest. Her sister Joanne's suspicions center on him.
My sister had mentioned that she had seen her ex-boyfriend, and she didn't go into detail with me, but she had mentioned that he made a scene. My intuition tells me that it's not unreasonable to think that he could have had a fight with her and something happened.
Many of Rachel's friends and family members say they considered her relationship with the ex-boyfriend to be volatile.
Their relationship was really kind of like fire and ice from the get-go.
Rachel's mother says the young man was very upset after Rachel broke off their relationship.
And when she came home the next time for the holiday, he came over and he was inebriated. And he came, it must have been 3 o'clock at night, pounding on the door wanting to see Rachel. So I had to threaten him because he just would not leave. I threatened to call the sheriff's department.
He still wanted to be a part of her life, and she didn't want to have anything to do with him.
They had been at a party a couple nights before, and people heard him arguing, and he was yelling at her and telling her that he couldn't live without her, and he wanted to be with her again and that she needed to be with him. This was 2 days before she disappeared.
Police investigate. but the man denies any involvement in Rachel's disappearance.
I just don't know. Ex-boyfriends, ex-husbands are always someone you have to look at, but when you don't have any proof, then you can't really call them a suspect.
The months go by. Despite all the efforts to solve the mystery, the first anniversary of Rachel's disappearance arrives, with authorities seemingly no closer to finding out what happened to Rachel Cook than they were at the outset. The family begins to lose hope.
I started thinking about all of the things that she was going to miss, that I was still going to get to do.
Being the parent of a missing person, or being a relative of a missing person, there's a thing we say that it's one of the biggest clubs in the world. And it's one club you never want to join.
Coming up, after years without a break in the Rachel Cook case, the investigation heats up when a convicted murderer reveals he has something to say.
He advised us that he killed Rachel Cook and named locations that he had taken her.
There's really no telling how it came down after she passed that driveway. Somebody was driving by and took an opportunity. It could be a possibility that someone was laying in wait for her. It would not have been easy for her to hear someone coming up on her.
I suspect that it happened either in the last part of her jog or else as soon as she walked into the house, because we never locked our house. We felt safe in that country area.
The case goes cold and becomes officially inactive. For the Cooks, the stress of Rachel's loss leads to additional family crises.
My sister's disappearance definitely changed my family. I think we each deal in our own way. And in a way that kind of got in between some of us.
Robert and I weren't communicating. When it came to Rachel's stuff, we were together. We were going to do what we needed to do for our baby. But his and mine's personal relationship it just wasn't there anymore.
She wanted hugs, she wanted comfort. Whereas my dad wanted to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then he also was kind of our liaison for the media and making sure the word got out.
It was very difficult on us because when you have a missing loved one, that comes to be like a second job. I ended up getting laid off. Janet and I were divorced, and just psychologically, it's always there. You wake up to it every day.
I asked for a divorce because I was just trying to keep myself alive. I mean, I had depression like you wouldn't believe. And I was seeing a psychiatrist, and I was on major meds.
And me, I tried to go on with life as much as I could, as much as normal.
Then, 2 years after Rachel disappears, there is fresh interest in the case when a new sheriff pulls together a Rachel Cook task force made up of sheriff's detectives, Texas Rangers, FBI, and the Austin Cold Case Unit.
And they thought they were really going to find Rachel. They tried for a long time and still did not come up with a lot that hadn't been found before.
In 2006, Detective Larry Hawkins is assigned, and when the task force is disbanded, he inherits its files, which take up 6 shelves and several file cabinets in his office. The father of 3 daughters, he is determined to solve the case.
A lot of police officers are looked at, we don't have a heart, and we're all about business, but Rachel Cook is someone's daughter. And for those of us who have kids, it kind of hits home.
Then, in August of 2006, investigators get what looks like a clear breakthrough in the case. From prison, a convicted murderer contacts authorities with a stunning story.
A gentleman named Michael Moore, who was the subject of an unrelated homicide investigation, told investigators that he was responsible for the disappearance of Rachel Cook.
Michael Moore is a career criminal who has been in and out of trouble since the age of 13. Moore has spent much of his adult life in prison. At the time of his confession to law officers, he is serving 4 life sentences for the 2003 robbery and murder of a young mother and her unborn child in a town neighboring Georgetown.
Michael Moore is a very interesting individual. He does have a history of murder. He has a history of a lot of things that would make him be a good suspect for this case.
Both Detective Hawkins and Texas Ranger Lindeman, among others, interview Moore in prison. He tells them he was driving around the neighborhood looking for someone to rob when he saw Rachel.
He advised us that he killed Rachel Cook and named locations that he had taken her.
He came forward and confessed that he had taken Rachel and dumped her body in Matagorda Bay, which is on the Gulf Coast of Texas.
Moore offers investigators a chilling, detailed account of what he had done to Rachel and how he had accosted her on the road.
And he stopped when she was jogging on the road and killed her with a hammer. That was all hard to hear.
The story is plausible. Moore was out of prison at the time of Rachel's disappearance and lived not far from her parents' house. After Rachel disappeared, a white pickup truck became a vehicle of interest. Moore was said to have driven a white pickup at the time. Rachel's mother remembers seeing such a vehicle near her house.
There is a white pickup truck that was in the area. And I think it was the first night after we went to the police, before the police were involved in the search. It cruised real slowly by the house.
Investigators continue to spend time talking with Moore. They believe they are starting to build a solid case.
Investigators interrogated him extensively, even taking him to locations where he had claimed to have disposed of her body.
Divers search a location Moore takes them to in Matagorda Bay, but they find nothing. Still, he and his attorneys work out a deal for Moore to plead guilty to the murder of Rachel Cook. In return for helping investigators, Moore is to get only an additional 18 months on his existing sentence. The Cooks hope for some kind of closure. Finally, an end to their long ordeal is in sight. They gather their family and friends and go to the courthouse for Michael Moore's plea hearing.
It was a really big deal for me and my family that we might get some sort of resolution. So people canceled everything they had going on in their lives to make it up here for that.
And we went in there and I saw Moore for the first time in person, sitting there with his lawyers.
Coming up, a shocking event at the courthouse shatters Rachel's family.
He is a predator. He lives and breathes based on taking advantage of other people. And he used my daughter for his own gain. That's why he did everything.
November 9th, 2006. For 4 years, Rachel Cook's family has been waiting and hoping for this day. A convicted murderer, Michael Moore, says he is finally going to tell them what happened to their daughter.
The day that Mr. Moore was going to enter his plea of guilty, there was a lot of interest generated because there had been so much extensive news coverage of Rachel's disappearance, and now it came down to the day that somebody was going to admit that they were the cause of her disappearance.
There was tons of reporters. The courtroom was absolutely full. It was almost like you see on TV. It just seemed very surreal.
The courtroom was packed with people, and Mr. Moore stood there to enter his plea.
Calls number 061823 K368 State versus Michael Keith Moore. The charge of murder is alleged. How do you plead? Repeat that for me.
And then he got up there and he said not guilty. And it was kind of a hush just fell over the entire crowd. Nobody knew what to do. He had been feeding the information that he had done it and said that he had done it. And then out of nowhere, he just decides that he is going to take it back.
Which was contrary to what he had been telling investigators and the prosecutor's office that he was going to do.
Moore's turnabout creates an uproar, even surprising his lawyers. But he sticks to his not guilty plea, and the hearing is dismissed. The Cook family voices outrage. They feel victimized all over again.
Come forward and be a man for once in your life and tell the truth.
Moore later tells a reporter that he made the whole story up.
He is a predator. He lives and breathes based on taking advantage of other people. And he used my daughter for his own gain. That's why he did everything.
I was livid. I thought that whether or not he had done it, the fact that he would put my family through that we would all come there hoping to get some kind of answers. And then he just throws it back in our face and says he doesn't care about anything.
The DA announces he will pursue a murder charge against Moore, but a grand jury is never called. Without Moore's cooperation, there is no case.
We were not able to speak to him anymore after that. He did sign paperwork, but it was not finalized by a judge as far as prosecuting him on it. There's no evidence that he actually did what he said he did.
Personally, that was the first time that I had had anyone own up to or claim to have done such a thing, and then at the last minute back out on those claims.
He's still a very strong person of interest.
Investigators have not been idle in the years since Michael Moore changed his plea. Acting on tips, Williamson County divers have searched Georgetown Lake at least 4 times, but they haven't found any trace of Rachel. Detective Larry Hawkins and Texas Ranger Matt Lindeman continue to work leads, hoping for a breakthrough.
You have to eliminate everything because one day you're going to have a legitimate tip. We have some tips of interest that we're looking at right now.
Some of those tips lead investigators to excavate portions of a property in Williamson County. Detective Hawkins uses ground-penetrating radar probes to look for disturbed soil and other indications someone may be buried at a location.
For the last 3 years, we get a continuous tip, as I call it, that Rachel is on a certain property. We've had multiple searches out there. It's just a continuous story that we hear with a little twist each time. It comes back to the same people every time. We're going to keep looking at it. It's a very large piece of property, and we're hoping.
In January of 2011, Michael Moore agrees to be interviewed about Rachel Cook for this program at the state prison in Gatesville, Texas. The camera is set up in the prison chapel. But when he appears, he says he has changed his mind, just as he did that day in court in 2006. Rachel's family doesn't know what to make of Moore's infuriating and cryptic behavior. At times, they think he may have had a hand in Rachel's disappearance. But more often, they think he is simply manipulating them.
He could have murdered Rachel. I'm not going to say anything. He lived not too far from us. So he could have done it. But I just had this feeling that he was just taking advantage of us.
Robert Cook keeps a small house in the Georgetown area where his daughter Joanne lives while getting a master's degree in social work at the University of Texas in Austin.
My sister's disappearance kind of solidified for me that I wanted to be in a profession where I'm involved with people. And I also want to make sure that anybody who's having any issues in their own life has somebody to talk to so that they don't feel tempted to do what whoever took my sister did.
Finding Rachel has been Robert's first priority since the day she disappeared, and the years have taken a heavy toll on him.
You feel guilty. You know, it's that you're not doing more, but there's just so much you can do as a private person. Without a lot of resources, you just can't do a lot.
He had made Rachel a promise that he was not going to quit until he found her. And he took that very, very, very seriously, and he still does. And at this point in his life, you know, not having found her, I think it's really chewing on him.
Investigators say they will never give up on a case that still haunts Georgetown, Texas. Rachel's image has shone down from billboards here, and a ceremony takes place each year on the anniversary of her disappearance at a memorial tree planted at her high school.
It is important to me that it be solved for the Cook family and for the community.
I believe that someone out there knows exactly what happened to Rachel Cook. Hopefully they will really think about it after watching this and realize that it's someone's child, that it's someone's sister, someone's grandchild, and there's a lot of devastated people out there.
It's possible somebody might have abducted her and just have her locked up somewhere. So what I would like is answers, just to know. I mean, even if that means we know she's dead.
It's a horrible thing to not know what happened, and I think it's even worse than a murder because you can't even bury your child.
I used to be embarrassed about crying on camera, but hey, guess what? I've earned these tears. I have every right to cry. Any mother would cry. So why hide it, you know? It's just evidence how much I love her.
The Jamison family disappeared on Thursday, October 8, 2009. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. The Jamison family's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to them. A 6-year-old girl and her free-spirited parents vanish in the backcountry of Oklahoma.
It was terrifying to know that they might be lost in those woods.
I had the feeling from the very first moment that it was foul play.
We thought they were either, one, lost on that mountain, or two, it was a murder-suicide.
A police investigation reveals bizarre questions, but no answers.
I know she's told the neighbors around here she's a witch.
In this area, you find that much money, automatically you start to think about drugs.
Then she put the gun to his head and said, "You need to go."
This isn't a random crime. This is something that was premeditated.
It was like not knowing. I mean, what happened to my kids?
They didn't deserve this.
On the day before the Jamisons disappear, they load their pickup truck and drive 30 miles to Oklahoma's Panola Mountain.
They were looking for property. They were looking to go buy 40 acres of land in a very rural area.
The Jamisons had actually learned about the land on the internet.
The parcel of land is situated in a remote area near an abandoned oil well.
It is really forested area. There's a lot of cliffs and ravines. That's what they like, though. They liked nature.
Those who know Bobby and Sherilyn Jamison say the couple looked at Panola Mountain as a fresh start, a new beginning for them and their young daughter.
They like to go look at land and imagine what if and fantasize about, you know, building whatever, their dream businesses, homes, whatever.
Nikki Shenold has been Sherilyn Jamison's closest friend for more than 10 years.
She used to say a lot, you have to stand for something. I don't care what you stand for, but you have to stand for something. When she believed in something, she believed in it with her whole heart.
Friends and family say that when Sherilyn met Bobby Jamison in the summer of 2002, she knew he was the man for her.
Sherilyn decided right then and there that she liked him and she was interested. Bobby was a very gentle man. He was a good man. He didn't want to do anybody wrong.
They fell in love and got married in July of 2004. Later that summer, the Jamisons have a baby girl and name her Madison.
Madison was my son's, I guess, best gift in his whole life.
Where are you going, Sissy? Looky, there you are on TV.
She was just, you know, a beautiful child, and her and I were best friends.
Madison.
For Bobby and Sherilyn, moving to Panola Mountain is the next step in building a simpler life. They're excited to join the small community living there, people who prize independence and self-sufficiency.
There's very few people that live up there. Even the ones that do have the bare minimum needs.
In order to have electricity, you have to really have a generator. Some people have septic systems, some people don't. It's a pretty rustic way of life.
When it comes to being off the grid, they're as close as you probably could be in this area.
On the morning the Jamisons start to explore the mountain where they hope to make their new home, they become lost in a maze of dirt roads. They run into one of the handful of people living up there and ask for directions.
He's out there working, he sees them come up. They're talking about buying land in that area. They're asking him questions about, okay, how do you build on a place, you know? How do you do the things that you need to do to be able to live in this area?
Bobby and Sherilyn get directions to the plot of land they're considering and decide to return the next day. The following morning, they drive back up the mountain, looking forward to seeing the place where they would live out their dreams.
I think they wanted to get away from everybody and be able to enjoy life on their own, not to have to answer to anybody.
It's pretty desolate, but I think desolate at that point was what they were looking for. They were just kind of looking to start anew and kind of get away from mainstream.
But the Jamisons' outing comes to an unexpected and mysterious end. 8 days later, hunters on four-wheelers find a locked truck parked on a dirt road near the top of Panola Mountain.
They peeked in the window and they saw a dog, and the dog was not doing so well. It had been locked in that truck for multiple days.
There wasn't any food for the dog. I mean, she was a survivor. She was a survivor to live through that.
There is no sign of the Jamisons anywhere on the hilltop. The Latimer County Sheriff's Office is called.
The call just came in that there's an abandoned truck up there. We broke the glass, got the dog out of there. We started to do an inventory on the vehicle to try to find out who they were.
When he began to find things in there, he knew that it was something definitely was wrong. They had cell phones in their truck, and their billfolds were there. Her purse was there. You know, it was like they had just disappeared.
Because their coats, phones, and money are all left behind, police believe that Bobby and Sherilyn, along with their 6-year-old daughter, Madison, must be lost nearby in the woods.
After we started looking through everything, we were figuring, okay, they're up here.
It would be quite easy for somebody to go out there and get bit by a snake and to not be able to get back to the truck and just to not be able to find your way around.
Police conduct an immediate search of the area surrounding the truck.
I had 5 or 6 deputies up there. Started calling out their names once we figured out who they were, trying to get some type of reply from them.
Rugged terrain makes the search doubly challenging.
You can get lost in the woods up there very easily unless you know where you're going. Because if you get in the midst of the trees, you can't see, very far ahead.
For law enforcement, time is of the essence.
There was a child missing. It was getting towards, middle, end of October. The nights were getting colder, and they didn't have their jackets with them because those were left in the truck.
We knew that they had been there 8 to 9 days, and you're getting on that timeline there to where, the chances of making it, we're at that point now.
Why hadn't anyone reported that the Jamison family had been missing for 8 days? The few people that saw their truck guessed that it belonged to a work crew.
There's a lot of wells up in that area, oil wells, gas wells. So a lot of people thought it was just people with the oil field that had come in.
Also, the Jamisons were a very private family, and it wasn't unusual for them to hunker down for several days or longer without speaking to friends or family members.
They had a habit of going out of town for extended periods of time and not really letting anybody know.
We could go a year and not talk and pick up the phone and act as if no time had gone by. I mean, that's just the relationship that we had. There's a lot of reasons why no one was alarmed.
Bobby and Sherilyn had also just pulled 6-year-old Madison out of school in preparation for homeschooling her.
The school didn't realize that, Madison wasn't there because she had been taken out.
If it wasn't for the hunters coming down and telling the man that lived close to him about the vehicle, it could have been that much longer.
The sheriff's men on Panola Mountain realized that by now, the Jamisons could be anywhere. They used the family's cell phones to help reconstruct their last known movements.
As we checked the GPS from the phone, we had found out that they didn't spend the majority of the time parked there.
GPS coordinates lead police up a nearby hill, where they find footprints.
The 6-year-old's footprints were there, and that was obvious and easy to identify.
We were able to follow their footprints as well as follow the GPS on the camera up to a rock.
They determined that the Jamisons spend about 15 or 20 minutes up the hill from their truck, and remarkably, they find an eerie memento of the family's time on the hill.
The cell phone had a picture on it of Madison. They'd actually taken the picture on a small bluff that was just north of the location, maybe just a couple 100 yards.
It's the last picture that we have of Madison.
It appears to police that after taking the photo, the Jamisons return to their truck and start to leave. What happened next is shrouded in mystery. Then, while scouring the cab for more clues, a deputy sheriff makes a stunning discovery.
He said, "I've got something to tell you, and I think you need to come up here." And I said, "Okay, what's going on?" And he told me, he said, "Hey, there is a substantial amount of money in this vehicle."
A bank bag hidden beneath the driver's seat contains $32,000 in cash.
I wondered why. Why is all this money in here?
Anytime any large amount of cash is found in a vehicle, it raises a lot of red flags.
So at that moment, I said, okay, get everybody away, tape it off as if it was a crime scene. Don't know, what's going on yet, but tape it off.
We really weren't sure why they disappeared.
Coming up, evidence points to a violent event in the Jamisons' disappearance.
I think that they were probably forced out at gunpoint. I mean, why would you struggle if someone has a gun to you?
While looking at a plot of land on Oklahoma's Panola Mountain, Bobby and Sherilyn Jamison and their 6-year-old daughter Madison have disappeared. Investigators find the family's truck abandoned in the Oklahoma backcountry.
A pickup sitting down there, with all of their goods and the dog locked inside the car was very suspicious.
Investigators are confounded by their most recent discovery, a hidden bank bag containing $32,000 in cash.
It's very unlikely that they would leave the vehicle there and lock their cell phones and their wallets and leave all of that in the car on their own accord, but we really didn't know.
Investigators are also baffled that the family dog was apparently left to die in the cab of the truck.
Madison, once she had that puppy, never went anywhere without the puppy.
It just doesn't make any sense, because that was Madison's friend, and she would have screamed and hollered if he'd left the dog in the car.
The whole fact that the dog was in the truck locked up and they're nowhere to be found tells me that they got out of the truck in a hurry.
Even the cell phone picture of 6-year-old Madison prompts speculation among some of their friends.
I don't think her parents took that picture. I think that somebody else that she did not know took that picture. She had her arms out like this and her hand was over in a weird position. She was looking off. It wasn't a real smile. She looked very uncomfortable to me. Very uncomfortable.
Police theorized that the Jamisons were in their truck heading back down the mountain when they were interrupted.
It seemed to me like they were leaving and that someone came up that one-way road and they stopped. Maybe they knew them, maybe not well. They stopped, talked to the person. From there, obviously, I don't know what happened.
But investigators find no signs of a struggle at the scene of the truck.
Signs of a struggle for life or death would be violent. That's not going to be some small tussle.
There was no blood found on the vehicle. There was no broken glass.
You're obviously looking for disturbance on the ground. When people fight, there's clothes that's shredded, there's things that fall out of pockets. Whenever it's that violent, something would be left to show that there was something that happened there.
Still, friends and family think the scene suggests that the Jamisons left against their will.
I think that they were probably forced out at gunpoint. I mean, why would you struggle if someone has a gun to you?
Hopeful for a lead, investigators process every item found in the truck.
At this point, there were so many different things that led us in different directions. We weren't sure if they were lost. We weren't sure if they were abducted.
Then, buried in the clutter filling the cab, they stumble upon something they never expected. An 11-page letter written from Sherilyn to her husband, brimming with hostility.
She was lashing out big time in this letter to Bobby.
It was just a hate and discontent. The years of fighting, she felt that he wanted to be a loner and didn't really need a family. And other than that, I mean, it was just a lot of hate.
Investigators learn that in recent months, there were serious stresses in the Jamisons' marriage.
We learned from their family members that they were having problems. We had learned from the letter that they were talking about getting divorced.
They had been looking at selling their house and kind of moving away to get away from that to make things better.
Much of the strain dates back to 2003, when Bobby was involved in a serious auto accident.
Bobby was driving his truck in 2003, and he had a wreck. He was coming around a curve, which is a blind curve in the road, and this lady hit him from one side, and another lady hit him from the other side.
Since the accident, Bobby suffered from chronic pain and was unable to work.
It is very hard for him to get up out of bed even. Medicine wasn't really helping relieve the pain.
It made it hard for him to do things around the home. And I think that the pain every day, the chronic pain, really put a toll on his spirits. And I think he became depressed, and it made things more difficult in the marriage.
The letter forces investigators to consider a violent scenario in the Jamisons' disappearance. Their concerns heighten when family members tell them that a pistol belonging to Sherilyn Jamison cannot be found.
We didn't know about the .22 pistol until that moment, so we said, no, we haven't found a pistol. And they told us, okay, well, usually she carries this pistol in the vehicle.
Investigators search the Jamisons' truck and house thoroughly. When they find no pistol, they begin to fear the worst.
We got a pistol missing. We have a hate letter here. We're starting to get to point toward maybe murder-suicide. We thought to ourselves that maybe it was her that had killed them.
Coming up, leads in the Jamisons' disappearance go from confusing to downright bizarre.
Bobby had asked him, okay, is there a special bullet that I can buy to kill these spirits?
Bobby and Sherilyn Jameson and their 6-year-old daughter Madison have been missing for nearly 2 days. The possibility of foul play comes to the forefront of the investigation as police learn more about a troubled marriage and Sherilyn's missing pistol.
A pistol being missing is important. We were told by family members that she carried the pistol everywhere. Maybe this was a murder-suicide.
If a murder-suicide had occurred, the Jamesons' bodies would still be somewhere on Panola Mountain. On October 17th, less than 24 hours after their truck was found, law enforcement begins a massive search.
The emergency management in Latimer County got a hold of all the fire departments in this area, EMS, forestry. Local people started showing up with horses, four-wheelers.
They didn't know where to go, where to start looking. You know, so they just took teams and went up there.
All of the resources of Latimer County are brought to bear. Helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft, tracking dogs, teams of horses and mule, and hundreds of personnel all assist in the search effort. The rough terrain makes everything twice as hard.
It's a triple canopy, a lot of woods, a lot of rocks, almost all of it straight uphill, and very, very tough conditions to try to do a search in.
It was also hazardous and dangerous because a lot of the people didn't know the woods and they could get lost.
Walking up those mountains and trying to keep a straight line and everybody intact is very, very hard to do in that type of terrain.
Tracking dogs are also brought up to Panola Mountain to aid in the search effort.
There were dogs that we brought up to the scene, both cadaver dogs and air scent dogs, to try to locate the Jameson family.
We used some articles from the vehicle to let the dogs take a sniff of it, try to get familiar with their scent.
The dogs start at the truck and fan outward through the surrounding terrain.
They were very interested at the top of the mountain as well as around the truck. They didn't really want to leave that area.
Although acres of woods surround the open area at the top of Panola Mountain, the dogs don't venture off the plateau. They alert on a nearby water tank, signaling investigators to the possible presence of human remains.
The tank was full of water, and the dogs seemed to have hit on it quite a bit. Obviously, we were thinking to ourselves, okay, they might be dead bodies in this tank.
The tank is drained and examined, but nothing is found inside. Search teams scour the mountainside, but find no bodies.
I find it impossible for you to be able to hide your own body. Yes, you may be able to hide one or two that you'd obviously killed, but to hide your own body would be nearly impossible.
That conclusion brings a measure of relief to the Jamesons' friends and family, who have trouble believing Sherilyn capable of murder.
I don't think there was any way, even if Sherilyn was depressed, that she would shoot Bobby. I know they had a lot of arguments and they had fights about things, but she truly loved Bobby and Bobby loved her.
To help spread the word about the Jamesons, missing posters are created and distributed around southeastern Oklahoma.
There was effort made to get information out to the public and to let them know that they were missing.
We took the picture of Madison off of their cell phone that they had taken up on the mountain. We put her age, height, her hair, date of birth. We used the driver's license of Sherilyn and Bobby, and we done the same for them.
So anybody that walked by, you could see, hey, you know, I didn't know them, or, you know, I saw them the other day.
Although their focus shifts away from murder-suicide, investigators continue to uncover strange details about the Jamesons' lives. They discover that Bobby, and especially Sherilyn, had a strong interest in spirituality.
Sherilyn had some beliefs that were not commonly shared with other people, and I think she had a tendency to exaggerate them and go a little bit overboard with them.
In the weeks prior to their disappearance, The Jamisons attended prayer meetings conducted by a local preacher, who was later interviewed by investigators.
He was talking about them seeing spirits, that they came to him and was talking to him about seeing spirits.
The preacher tells investigators that Sherilyn said that angels were coming into their home in the form of children and interacting with her 6-year-old daughter.
I know that Sherilyn had said that Madison was talking to people that had died, and one of them was named Emily. I don't think it was someone dead. I think it was an imaginary being that she, had, to cope with some of the things that were going on in her life. It's very hard for a small child to be somewhere where there's arguments going on.
The preacher also tells police that Bobby Jamison believed that he saw spirits on the roof of their Lakeside Eufaula home. It's a disturbing revelation.
It was 3 or 4 spirits that were giving them trouble and mostly talking about them being on the roof. We had also found out from him that Bobby had asked him, okay, is there a special bullet that I can buy to kill these spirits?
That makes me sad. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know what that would be about.
Friends and family are not clear on what Bobby may have been going through to explain such unusual behavior.
It's a mystery to me. I don't know where that came from, and I don't know the minister. I don't know the church. I've never been there before. It just doesn't sound like him to say something like that.
According to police, Sherilyn had also spray-painted odd phrases on signs and buildings in their neighborhood, including the storage container they had sitting on their lakefront property.
Sherilyn had a cat that had passed away, and she believed that it had been poisoned, and that raised a lot of issues within the neighborhood.
The graffiti said something along the lines of witches don't like their cats being killed.
I know she's told the neighbors around here she's a witch, and come on in for some witch's brew, and I think it scared people off, but I think she just didn't want to be bothered by people.
Sherilyn used to tell me, if you have a problem with somebody, make them think you're crazy. The crazier they think you are, the more they'll leave you alone. It's true, it worked. You spray paint some crazy stuff on there and people think you are crazy. I don't think anybody bothered them after that.
For investigators, the clues and odd revelations about the Jamisons' lives are not adding up to a coherent whole.
When you do an investigation, one of the ways that most of us were taught, you actually get rid of each scenario that could have happened. So a process of elimination on it. And in this case, we haven't been able to completely eliminate anything.
This has been a very bizarre thing. I mean, there are so many pieces to this puzzle, and every day you find a new piece, something else comes up.
After the Jamisons have been missing for 7 days, a lead finally surfaces that appears to turn the investigation around. Law enforcement learns that the Jamison home is outfitted with surveillance cameras and that recordings were made up to the time of the family's disappearance.
Both cameras were pointed toward the driveway of the residence. We have the footage of their home surveillance that morning of them getting ready and preparing to come up to the mountain.
In the eerie-looking surveillance video recorded on the day they disappeared, the Jamisons are seen packing their truck.
The family was found going in and out of the home multiple times, back and forth to the car in somewhat of a trance-like state.
We found it odd that they had to go back and forth so many times. I would say safely each one of them, without it being an exaggeration, went 20 times back and forth. They never acknowledged each other as they were walking back and forth from the vehicle. Never acknowledged each other. It's like they were the only persons in the world.
Speculating that the Jamisons' behavior may indicate an involvement with drugs, Sheriff Beecham shows the recording to experts.
I actually had psychologists look at the footage of them leaving their house from their security cameras, trying to get an idea of what type of people they thought they were. It made me and the psychologists feel that they were on some type of drug at that time.
If the Jamisons were involved with drugs, in Latimer County, that usually means one thing.
We automatically assume here in southeastern Oklahoma, if you're on a drug, that it's methamphetamine because we have such a problem with it here.
Coming up, could a violent incident a month before the Jamisons disappeared be the key to solving the case?
And then she put the gun to his head and said, "You need to go. You need to leave right now and don't come back."
The Jamison family has been missing for 14 days. But now, a recovered surveillance video leads investigators to suspect a drug connection in their disappearance.
We felt that there was a possibility that Sherilyn and Bobby had been doing methamphetamines or other drugs by the behaviors on the video surveillance.
It can come in a powder form. It can come in a crystal form. They like to call it the redneck cocaine.
Some sort of drug connection could possibly help explain the bank bag with $32,000 found in the Jamisons' truck.
In this area, you find that much money, automatically you start to think about drugs.
But the Jamisons' friends and family believe that connecting them to illicit drug use is both wrong and unfair.
I don't know anything about having drugs or any of that. People jump to conclusions. They don't know what's happening.
I feel like a lot of the things that could be helpful in this case are almost being used to make them seem like druggies or whatever, and they weren't. They weren't at all. Everyone is speculating as to what were they really doing up there. Well, they were looking at land. It doesn't mean that they were up to no good.
Family members can also explain the seemingly suspicious array of surveillance cameras on the house. Bobby's mother says they had nothing to do with drugs. The cameras were installed for personal reasons, involving her now deceased husband.
Surveillance cameras put on the house for protection. My husband had threatened me several different times. He also threatened my son and Sherilyn. And I had the cameras installed. I'm the one that did that. I also had a security system put on my house because I was afraid. And it's hard to live through life being afraid.
FBI agents conduct a thorough search of the Jamisons' house and property.
There were no traces of methamphetamine in the home or in the vehicle.
As far as I know, the FBI did not find any drugs.
Investigators are unable to make a clear connection between the Jamisons' disappearance and drugs. But delving deeper into their personal lives, police uncover information that could explain some of Sherilyn's apparently erratic behavior.
After meeting with Sherilyn's mental health provider, we learned that she suffered from bipolar disorder and that she had been struggling for many years with the condition.
According to friends and family, Sherilyn didn't always stay on her prescribed medication.
It's a hard thing to accept that you have to take medication to be normal the rest of your life. She would do what a lot of depressed people do when you start feeling good because of the medication. You're like, oh, I'm good now. And you get off the medication and then you're worse off because your brain's trying to catch up.
I mean, she was like two different people. When she was taking her meds and taking them properly, she would be the happiest person on earth.
Sherilyn's condition could explain some of the more unusual writings in her journal, including the hostile letter written to her husband that police found in the Jamisons' truck.
When she would go in the other state of her bipolarism, she would be angry, hateful, belittling herself.
Sherilyn didn't write a word unless she was writing what was going on in her head. And that's why the journal was so disturbed.
Despite Sherilyn's sometimes erratic behavior, investigators believe that her bipolar disorder played no part in the family's disappearance. According to friends and family, her illness and Bobby's chronic pain did create enormous tensions in their marriage. But they looked at moving to Panola Mountain as a second chance at happiness.
They were trying to make a go of it. They were trying to get back together. And I think they thought if they moved up there, they could, just start a new life. My son loved her very, very much, as well as he did his daughter, and she loved them back.
By November 1st, the family has been missing for more than 3 weeks. Investigators are stumped.
Most investigators would love to have the amount of evidence that we have. And the problem is that it leads us in every which direction.
Then, just when they are running out of angles, a stunning new lead surfaces. Police learn that a few months before they disappeared, Bobby and Cheryl Lynn took in a boarder.
There was an individual that was living with them, and this individual was there to help work on the residents.
Because of his chronic back pain, Bobby thought having another set of hands around would ease the burden on both him and Cheryl Lynn. But according to friends, the boarder began to make Cheryl Lynn uncomfortable when Bobby wasn't around.
Cheryl Lynn and Madison both felt very threatened by this fellow who had been staying with them.
Investigators learn of one incident that was especially disturbing to Cheryl Lynn.
Bobby had left to go somewhere, and the man that was staying here sat down next to her, real close, and put his face right in her face and said, you know, I'm a white supremacist, and you keep talking about all this Indian blood you have. And I think anybody who's not pure white needs to die.
Cheryl Lynn takes Madison away and returns with one of Bobby's guns.
She was scared for her child, and Bobby. And she pointed the gun at the guy and said, get off this property and don't come back.
Cheryl Lynn fires live rounds near the boarder's feet to drive him away.
She's really torn up about that. She felt really bad about it. I mean, she was crying to me, telling me this and saying, I've never held a gun to anyone before.
Investigators learn that the man has an extensive police record.
Obviously, this person became a great interest to us.
If you threaten someone and then they make you leave at gunpoint, that's a pretty big indicator that you might be wanting to retaliate.
The FBI launches an investigation to identify and track down the former boarder.
The FBI felt that he quite possibly could have brought them harm.
Coming up, investigators zero in on the Jamisons' boarder. What does he know about their disappearance?
This isn't a random crime. This is something that was premeditated. Somebody knew they were going to be there that day, and they took advantage of that.
Bobby and Cheryl Lynn Jamison and their daughter Madison have been missing for 3 weeks. But the investigation into their disappearance is finally working with a solid lead. Police learn that a month before they disappeared, a live-in handyman allegedly threatened Cheryl Lynn's life. She forced him to leave their home at gunpoint. His current whereabouts are unknown.
We found out all the information we needed about the individual.
Investigators learn the boarder's name from a prescription bottle found in the Jamisons' truck.
We put it out to the U.S. Marshals.
U.S. Marshals find the man living in Wilburton, Oklahoma, and detain him.
U.S. Marshals tracked him down, and the FBI did interview him.
In the interview, the former boarder is able to account for his time during the Jamisons' disappearance. The FBI doesn't consider him to be a suspect. Investigators again find themselves back at square one.
I really don't know where to go from here other than each time that we get a lead, follow up on the lead.
Friends and family believe that despite the crushing challenges in their lives, the Jamisons were planning for a brighter future until something or someone got in their way.
They were trying to love each other the best they could, you know? But knowing all of that now, it really makes me sad because they didn't get that chance to start over fresh.
Over the weeks and months that follow, investigators check out each and every lead that comes their way.
There's a rumor of them being in trouble with, whether it be organized crime or just small-time gangs or crimes. That is all rumor. And we don't know any of that for a fact. But we can't get rid of that. So it's still there.
But the rumors don't lead to a break in the case. The FBI doesn't currently consider anyone to be a suspect in the Jamisons' disappearance.
At this time, we have no suspects. And until evidence comes to life to show differently, There are no suspects.
Sheriff Beecham believes it's probable that the Jamisons were kidnapped or taken by force. He just doesn't have the evidence to prove it.
Because of everything being left in there and the way the vehicle was parked, they got out of that vehicle after they were trying to leave the location because somebody had drove up there. Somebody had drove up there and blocked their path.
It's so rural up there that you wouldn't just cross paths. This isn't a random crime. This is something that was premeditated. Somebody knew they were going to be there that day, and they took advantage of that.
Whether they made them leave by gunpoint, force, or they got in voluntarily, I don't know. And what happened from there, I don't know. But that is my current theory on what had happened.
Both family and investigators are frustrated by the magnitude of the mystery surrounding the Jamisons.
Most of the time people will tell you, and I hate saying it, but you need to find bodies. Whether alive or dead, to usually solve a case like this, you need the bodies.
Right now, we just need everyone's help in finding them and locating them, because not knowing is very hard.
I've used more resources than most people have ever used in the state of Oklahoma to try to find somebody. It's a small department. It's a small county. There's not very many people around here. Everybody talks about it now. Every day I hear, did you find that missing family yet? Did you find them? And no. That's my only answer. You know, it messes with your confidence. There's no doubt. Not being able to solve such an important case.
Perhaps due to the lack of new leads, media interest in the Jamisons' disappearance outside of Latimer County has slowed to a trickle.
Even right now, whenever I ask someone if they know about this family, a whole family that went missing, they have no idea what I'm talking about.
In the meantime, Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison's family remains desperate for answers.
It's hard to put yourself in the family's shoes. I've never had this happen to me, and I couldn't imagine it happening to me. And it must be the toughest thing you could probably go through in a lifetime.
We've already had 7 months go by. The search has gotten kind of cold. I've gone through so many scenarios in my head. If they can help me find my kids, I'll do anything. I want my kids back.
To help the case, if anybody does know any information, they need to give us a ring. We need it. We're begging for it. If you know where they're at, tell us.
You know, I would sell my left limb if somebody would come forward. If somebody would just say something. Anything. Because for as many people that there were out there that didn't like them, there were twice as many people who loved them. And we need closure. They didn't deserve this.
Thank you for watching Investigation Discovery on Demand.
Tim Carney disappeared on September 28, 2004. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Tim Carney's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to him. 25-year-old Tim Carney belongs to a religious group that worries his family.
I think they were telling him, we're your family now. You don't need your family. We're your family.
Suddenly, he vanishes on his way to morning prayers, leaving his family searching for clues.
I always wonder
if he was trying to warn us about something that was happening.
The Carneys suspect Tim's religious devotion may have played a role in his disappearance.
He would never go this long without calling somebody in our family and saying, I'm okay.
Just when investigators believe Tim may be out of reach, witnesses think they have spotted him.
He seemed very tense and very nervous.
Will detectives be able to find him before it's too late?
If he had to live on the streets, I just don't see him surviving.
25-year-old Tim Carney has devoted himself to his religious life. For the past 5 years, he's been a member of a small church in New Jersey. Every morning, Tim has the same routine. Before starting his day at the New Jersey Unemployment Office, he wakes up at 5 a.m. and goes to the church's 7 a.m. prayer meeting.
He came home one weekend and said that he had joined a church, and we were glad. We grew up in church, so we thought that was good.
We stressed the fact that religion was an important part of our lives. We believe in God. We went to church every Sunday. I taught Sunday school. Tim was in my class as well as his sisters. So we were happy that religion was still a part of his life.
Tim joins the Gospel Outreach Church, led by Pastor Jim Lethbridge, and soon has a new circle of friends. His sister Megan would come to question the group's appeal.
I think Tim joined Gospel Outreach because they posed themselves as a Christian study group, people that were on his wavelength, you know, really focused on academics.
He didn't say too much, just that he was going to church and we were just happy to hear that, so we left it at that.
Tim surrounds himself primarily with Gospel Outreach members and has been living with fellow congregants since college.
He felt very comfortable there. He felt wanted and loved, and he felt at home.
While Tim had excelled in academics growing up, his bookish nature made it difficult for him to make friends when he was younger.
He was the smart kid, so people shy away from smart kids. He would be talking to adults at 12 years old because nobody else understood him. He was made fun of a lot. He just wanted to feel like he belonged to something, a group.
It was hard. It was very hard because we know he's got a great sense of humor. He's a great kid. You just got to get to know him.
Tim's passion for books eventually inspired him to write his own stories.
Tim started writing at a young age. Because he loved reading so much, it was just natural for him to just try to create his own adventures in writing.
Tim had particularly enjoyed mysteries.
His favorite was Edgar Allan Poe, and he liked to write with the surprise endings. In his briefcase, he had writing. He was writing a book.
Tim was pretty secretive with his writings. Once he felt like something was perfect, then he would share it. But before then, he was pretty protective of his writings, and he would keep them in like a briefcase.
Tim could never have known then that his own life would one day become the center of a troubling mystery. On September 28, 2004, an average Tuesday, Tim's day begins as usual. According to his roommate Roy, also a member of Gospel Outreach, Tim wakes at 5 a.m. to go to the 7 a.m. prayer meeting. But on this day, Tim's morning unfolds differently from his normal routine. His fellow church members report that Tim never arrives at morning prayers. Even before his disappearance, Tim's family is uncomfortable with the way Tim makes church activities the central focus of his life.
Whereas before he would come down and join us for church on Sunday as a family, now if he did come down, he had to leave right away to get back to the group. It was more about, you know, I got to get to Bible study, or I have to get to men's group, or I have to get to choir. It was mandatory for him to attend.
Family members worry that Tim's religious commitment is pulling him away from them.
Well, there was a big change in Tim. He didn't come around as often. He was very secretive. He wouldn't communicate with us. And that was tough because before that, we always had a good communication.
It was just really out of character for him, just not like him, to to miss a family function or to not call. And it was happening more and more frequently. I didn't like what was happening. I didn't like that he couldn't be with us.
Every time he had to go somewhere, he couldn't go by himself. When my sister was in the hospital, he would come down to see her, but he always had somebody else with him. And they made a statement once where it's like, well, we wanted to make sure there was a real Aunt Kathleen.
Phyllis Carney sensed a pressure on Tim to distance himself from his family.
I think they don't want you to talk to anybody else outside the group, because they always said, well, don't tell anybody about us because they won't understand.
Rick Ross is consulted nationwide by families and law enforcement. He has made a career studying religious groups, including Gospel Outreach and Pastor Lethbridge.
In my experience, the families that have loved ones in Gospel Outreach have very limited communication. When a group isolates members, they do that in order to create a kind of bubble. If they can control everything that goes into the mind, they can control the mind itself. So by isolating people from family members, they create an environment in where what the group wants them to think and feel is constantly being reinforced.
I think they were telling them, we're your family now. You don't need your family. We're your family. Well, churches bring people together. They don't tear them apart.
Tim's family notices that his devotion to gospel outreach and to the teachings of Pastor Lethbridge seems to have a physical effect.
He changed his appearance. He always had short hair in college. And one summer when he came home, he had long hair and he had a ponytail. We didn't think much of it. Actually, it looked good on him. But then one Sunday, we went and sat in on a church service, and lo and behold, the minister happens to have long hair and a ponytail. And so do several other male members of the group.
But then one day he came home with short hair and surprised me. Then we saw Lethbridge right after that, and Lethbridge had cut his hair.
Gradually, Tim's parents begin to see gospel outreach as very different from the kind of church in which the Carneys had grown up.
We had gotten a phone call from parents who have a son in the group also, and they had some concerns about the church and they wanted to talk to us about it. That's when everything kind of fell into place. Things that we joked about, we thought was kind of funny, but once we started talking to these people, it wasn't funny anymore. It was serious. We know he's a smart boy. We didn't think he'd be sucked into a group that would influence him like they did.
In 2003, the year before Tim disappears, his ties to gospel outreach grow even stronger when he begins seeing a woman who is also a member of the congregation.
He came home and said he was courting. That's the word they used. I said, well, what kind of word is courting? I wasn't, they don't use that word anymore. That's such an old-fashioned term that was a little strange too, I thought.
Tim's family was bewildered by his dating rituals.
They could sit next to one another, but they couldn't hold hands. If they wanted to hold hands, they had to hold a fork. She held the fork halfway, and then he would grab a fork the rest of the way. And that was their way of being with one another. They couldn't touch.
At Tim's college graduation party, his sister Megan noticed that some members of gospel outreach seemed to have more conservative customs than other couples she knew.
There was 3 people watching TV, and the couple that was supposed to have been together weren't sitting next to each other on the couch. There was somebody in between them. It seemed like none of the girls could ever be alone with their significant others. There always had to be like a person watching to make sure that they were following the rules.
When his parents bring up what they perceive as the church's strict doctrines, it becomes a source of tension in the family.
We try to avoid talking about the church because then that only goes into an argument, and then we start yelling at one another.
He was constantly trying to prove to us that it was a legitimate group, or it was a good group, or that there was nothing wrong, that everything was fine and happy. I think part of that is that he wouldn't want my mother or my father to worry, But part of that is almost as if maybe deep down he knew that some of the things that they were doing weren't how we were raised or how we grew up.
All the Carneys knew of gospel outreach was what they heard from Tim, that it was a Christian fellowship devoted to studying the Bible. Despite his family's concerns about the strict lifestyle that gospel outreach seems to require, Phyllis Carney sees Tim's relationship having a positive impact on her son.
Oh, he seemed very happy. He really did. He seemed very, very happy with her. I mean, he brought her to the family Christmas party. If he's happy, then you're happy.
But about 7 months after Tim's relationship begins, the Carneys learned some disappointing news.
One day he just came and said they had broken up, and that's all he would say. Looked like he was upset about it, but he wouldn't talk about it. And that was it.
On Saturday, September 25th, 2004, 5 months after Tim's breakup, he and his sisters Erin and Megan have dinner at their childhood home to celebrate their parents' anniversary.
We just had a nice night, family-wise. We didn't talk about the church at all.
He didn't leave early. He stayed, and he had dinner with us, and we watched a movie after, and it was like the old Tim. Being in the moment, just being with the family, just having a good time.
The last thing he did was hug me and say, "Mom, I love you." And then he left and went home.
The next day, Sunday, Megan gets together with Tim, but their time is cut short.
We were supposed to go to lunch, but I canceled because I wasn't in a good mood.
Megan sees a potential clue she may have missed, looking back on that day.
He was trying hard to convince me to go out to eat, try to, get together, and I didn't. I didn't go. It feels awful. I hate so much that I wasn't in a good mood. He wasn't always so insistent to meet for lunch. Like, if we get together, we get together. If we don't, we'll just reschedule, no big deal. But I always wonder if he was trying to tell me something, or maybe warn us about something that was happening that we didn't know about. I always wonder about that.
Tim's request to meet for lunch would echo in Megan's mind. Just 2 days later, on Tuesday, September 28th, Tim never shows up at morning prayers and disappears. Coming up, when police find a clue, Tim's family fears the worst.
We thought foul play.
On Saturday, September 25th, 3 days before he disappears, 25-year-old Tim Carney spends the evening with his family at his parents' home in Edison, New Jersey. As he leaves, Tim hugs his mom goodbye and says he'll see her next week. The following Tuesday, September 28th, Tim gets up at 5 a.m. as usual to go to the Gospel Outreach 7 a.m. morning prayers. But Tim never appears. By 9 a.m., when Tim doesn't show up at the unemployment office where he works as a claims examiner, his coworkers assume Tim is just late. According to his colleagues, this had become common, especially since his breakup. Then, just after 9 a.m., Tim calls his supervisor to say he'll be late. But by 10 a.m., Tim hasn't arrived. Calls to his home and cell phones only reach his voicemail. The next day, the Carneys get a call every parent dreads.
His roommate Roy called and wanted to know if Tim was at our house because he didn't come home that night. Well, no, he's not here.
We called his cell phone and it just rang. No one picked up.
Alarmed, Phyllis and Ed Carney file a missing persons report with the police in Butler, New Jersey, where Tim lives. When detectives search his home, they find no indication that Tim was leaving for longer than just a normal workday. Detective Colleen Pascal is on the team investigating Tim's case.
Nothing was taken out of his home of importance. If he again intended to go away for long, he did not take any of his belongings. His room was intact. His clothes were still there.
Police discover Tim took something with him that at the time seemed normal for him to bring to work, along with his wallet, keys, and cell phone.
We understand that he took the silver briefcase. It's believed that there were writings in that briefcase, which is something that he always carries.
According to investigators, after Tim calls his supervisor around 9 that morning, all outbound activity from his cell phone stops. On Wednesday, September 29th, the day after Tim vanishes, a clue appears.
We received information that somebody had found a wallet.
A patron at the Lyndhurst Diner spots Tim's wallet in the eatery's parking lot. The restaurant is on Route 23, halfway between Tim's apartment and his office. Police learn from the diner's employees that someone matching Tim's description used to eat breakfast there often. Unfortunately, by the time police received the tip about Tim's wallet, it has already been sitting at the diner for several days.
When the wallet was found, they called the phone number that was in his wallet, and his roommate obtained the message, but the message didn't get to the police that day. The police didn't find out about the wallet for quite some time. They could have questioned people a lot sooner instead of quite a few days after.
Police canvass the area around the diner, but find no leads. The wallet still contains Tim's credit cards, leading police to believe this was not a robbery. What's missing also doesn't suggest foul play to Al Schumann, a private investigator hired by the Carney family 6 months after Tim disappears.
Curiously, what was missing from the wallet was nothing except his driver's license and his college identification card.
Since nothing valuable is missing from Tim's wallet, investigators now reason that he may have left it there himself. If so, they need to find out why. Because Tim is an adult, his case centers on one concern. Did he vanish of his own free will, or has he been abducted?
If he chose to be missing on his own, if he just left and did not want to be found, then that in itself is not a crime. He's not a child. He doesn't have to report to his parents where he is.
Three days after Tim vanishes, there's a new development. In Newark, about 35 miles from Tim's home, construction workers discover an abandoned car. When police respond to the scene, they determine that the car belongs to Tim Carney.
When they found this car, we thought foul play. So we were very worried at this point that something terrible had happened to Tim, because they thought, well, maybe they found his body there also. And they said, no, it's just a car. There's no sign of Tim.
Once again, the investigation takes an unfortunate turn. By the time police get the call, it has been almost a week that Tim's car has been at the construction site.
That's where the city of Newark and the city of Elizabeth meet. No one was notified right away about the car because each township felt it was the other township's issue. So it had gone quite a few days without anybody contacting the police regarding it to even notice that, wow, that car belonged to somebody who was declared missing.
The construction site sits on a dirt road off the main highway. It's virtually unreachable by foot.
We didn't know what to think because, like, well, if his car's there, then how did he get out of the spot? It's in a remote spot. It was very far to walk to anywhere.
Investigators find little that indicates what may have happened to him.
It had been raining, and so any clues that there were there, whether it's footprints or whatever, were washed away.
No forensics other than his was retained from the vehicle. There was no sign of struggle. No evidence led any of the investigator officers to believe that there was foul play. It appears that the vehicle was just abandoned.
But detectives do notice one thing notably missing from Tim's car.
He always had this briefcase with him, and they didn't find it.
Since police find no sign of foul play from Tim's wallet or car, and the briefcase that had always been by his side is now missing, detectives believe that Tim may have disappeared intentionally. The discovery of Tim's car gives Tim's loved ones some hope, while also raising some unsettling questions.
Why would he ditch the car? I mean, all kinds of thoughts go through your head. It's like, did he get hurt? Did he walk somewhere? What's the next step? Where do you go? Where should we go look? any bit of hope, you go running to it. You have hope that you'll find him.
Even though the car itself doesn't provide any leads, investigators do find one important clue. The construction site is right by Newark International Airport. Coming up, Tim's family suspects he may be in trouble.
He would never go this long without calling somebody and saying, I'm okay.
Mysterious signs of 25-year-old Tim Carney have been turning up after he disappears on Saturday, September 28, 2004. Tim's wallet is spotted in a parking lot the next day. Then, police find his car in a remote location about 35 miles from his home. There are no signs of foul play, but they do notice that his briefcase is missing. His briefcase, containing his writing, was the one item Tim was known to always keep with him. Since Tim's car is abandoned near Newark International Airport, police reason he may have boarded a flight. Tim's father, Ed Carney, believes that his son could have headed to Canada.
We thought he might have gone to Canada because he knows people in Canada. He speaks French fluently. He had 7 years of it in school.
At the time of Tim's disappearance, a driver's license was sufficient travel documentation for U.S. citizens to enter Canada. Since Tim's driver's license was missing from his wallet, it's possible he could have crossed the border. Phyllis Carney believes her son may have been looking for a way out of what they saw as the restrictive life he led as a member of the Gospel Outreach Church.
If Tim was going to leave the church, I don't think he would have told us. And so I think he might have thought in order to leave the church, this was the way to do it. The pressure might have just gotten to him.
Initially, Tim's family wants to believe their only son will soon return.
We thought maybe he's got to clear his head and then we'll see him again.
But as the days stretch on, the Carneys also find something troubling in Tim's disappearance. Even if he left of his own free will, they wonder if something may have happened to him.
I just know my brother enough to know that he would never do this to my parents. I mean, we're a pretty close family. He would never go this long without calling somebody in our family and saying, I'm okay.
Ed Carney speaks to Pastor Jim Lethbridge soon after Tim goes missing. Just days later, members of his church and Lethbridge leave for a weekend retreat.
And he told me when they come back, he'll give me the full support of him and the church and looking for Tim. I thought it was odd that they all decided to go away for a weekend and not help me find Tim.
Rick Ross has seen this response to a disappearance with other religious groups.
When there's a group and it's very small, like the Lethbridge group, which has just a handful of members really, and someone important like Tim Carney leaves, who everyone regarded as at one time a loyal and devoted member, it creates doubts in the group. So in order to get a handle on that, a leader may sequester the group and go into a kind of retreat where he or she can then spin the departure of the valued group member for damage control.
Once Gospel Outreach members return from the retreat, the Carneys hope for their support in the search effort.
I specifically called Pastor Lethbridge to request his assistance, and he just was unavailable. He couldn't be bothered.
They might have known if he was depressed. He was with them more than he was with us. Any one of them could have helped us, but nobody talked to us, nobody called. And that's more disappointing than anything, that nobody wanted to help us.
After private investigator Al Schumann also reaches out to Gospel Outreach members, he says he gets minimal cooperation.
The church members were reluctant to speak. As a matter of fact, they were very curt and abrupt in response.
Then, Ed and Phyllis Carney speak to other parents of Gospel Outreach members. They report learning that Tim's congregation has a very different understanding of his disappearance.
And I was shocked to find out that they're told that Tim's okay.
According to the Carneys, Jim Lethbridge has given his congregation a disturbing account of Tim's disappearance. That Tim is not missing at all, and that his parents know his whereabouts.
He told them we kidnapped our own son.
He just feels that my parents have done something with him and that, you know, we're hiding him. We're certainly not hiding him. We're trying to bring him home.
Still pursuing the theory that Tim might have boarded a plane, investigators examine travel manifests in the hope of finding Tim's name on a flight out of Newark. Their search comes up empty, as do Al Schumann's inquiries with Canadian authorities.
I contacted the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They said that at that point, border patrols had tightened to the point where they were almost certain that he could not have gone into Canada from the United States without being detected.
But investigators realize that Tim could have found a way to make himself nearly invisible to anyone trying to track him. The search for Tim Carney might be targeting the wrong person.
He could have assumed a new identity due to his employment.
Tim's position at the state unemployment office put dozens of Social Security numbers within his reach, giving him the ability to create an entirely new identity. If Tim did assume another identity, it would be virtually impossible to track him among the thousands of passengers who travel daily through Newark Airport. Phyllis Carney suspects that with a new identity, Tim could easily avoid detection.
He's a very average-looking guy. I mean, he doesn't have blue hair.
Is it possible that Tim, the amateur mystery writer, could have created the ultimate whodunit?
It's like it's a mystery novel without the ending.
Coming up, Tim may be closer to home than his family realizes. 25-year-old Tim Carney has gone missing. According to his family, he may have wanted to escape his life in the Gospel Outreach Church, a congregation the Carneys saw as isolating and controlling. Tim's family hears that Gospel Outreach pastor Jim Lethbridge has told his members that Tim has not disappeared at all, and that his parents know where he is. Since Tim had access to countless Social Security numbers through his job at the unemployment office, investigators consider the possibility that he could be traveling under a different identity. Police get a lead that heats up the local search again. Since his disappearance, investigators have been monitoring Tim's bank account and credit cards. For 3 days, the accounts have shown no activity. But suddenly, on the 4th day after Tim goes missing, bank surveillance images reveal a man accessing Tim's checking account.
On October 2nd, there was an image taken of a male party withdrawing money from his account. He's wearing a baseball cap, and the baseball cap was pulled down very low over his eyes so that you could not see who the individual was. Clearly, the individual is trying to hide themselves from the camera.
The bank is located about 7 miles from the construction site where Tim's car is found abandoned, and about 24 miles from his usual branch. The man in the surveillance image hands the teller a withdrawal slip in the amount of $1,000, just $100 short of the entire balance in Tim's account. When police interview the bank teller, she reports a curious observation. The person making the transaction had a red, splotchy rash all over his hands.
I knew it was him. He had psoriasis starting in high school. I could tell it was him. I could tell it by his hand.
According to his parents, Tim's psoriasis tended to flare up at specific times.
Stress plays a role in it, so that would be something that would tell us that it was Tim.
Detectives showed the bank teller photos of Tim, and she identifies him as the man who made the withdrawal. Upon inspecting the withdrawal slip, police discovered that it includes Tim's driver's license number as proof of ID. The evidence confirms investigators' belief that it was Tim making the transaction. When authorities checked the bank's surveillance images, there is nothing that suggests Tim was being forced to make the withdrawal.
The individual who was there did not appear to be under duress.
But Tim's sister Megan isn't convinced that the man believed to be Tim was acting alone.
There was no parking lot shots to see if he was by himself or with somebody else.
Without his car, it would have taken Tim over 2 hours to walk from the construction site near Newark Airport to the bank. Investigators believe someone may be driving him around. But the question remains, even if Tim is with someone, is he in trouble? Authorities examine Tim's financial history for clues to his disappearance. What they find surprises even those closest to him. Tim had approximately $20,000 in credit card debt, a huge sum for anyone, particularly a civil servant making around $35,000 per year.
He did not have a lavish lifestyle. He lived in a local apartment complex. He drove a basic car.
Oh, we figured he was doing okay. He's got a decent job. He's making a living. He was making ends meet.
Tim was the last person his family would expect to be in debt.
My brother was always good at saving. If he wanted a computer, my parents wouldn't buy it for him. He was always really good about saving to get whatever he wanted. He always had money. He always had some type of emergency fund.
But when authorities investigate his work life, they learn that Tim often borrowed money from his coworkers.
Sometimes he didn't even have the 70 cents tolls to go home with. You know, he'd have to borrow that. He'd borrow money for lunch.
Tim's family suspects that his involvement with gospel outreach may have been a factor in Tim's large debt.
When he joined Gospel Outreach, we started to notice that he didn't have as much money as he did before.
According to police, Gospel Outreach informed them that as a nonprofit organization, it collects annual dues that total about 10% of each member's yearly income. The Carneys believe Tim may have felt pressured to give Gospel Outreach more than just 10%.
He was giving a lot to the church. He got a part-time job also on top of his full-time job.
We didn't realize the income that he had, it just wasn't enough to live on after all that he was giving to the church.
I do believe that he may have had to pay using credit card debt and things like that to remain a part of this congregation.
According to Tim's family, the impact of his contributions to the church was evident.
I just remember a conversation with my mother and my brother. My mother telling him that, you know, he needed new shoes. And I remember my brother getting upset and telling her that you're expected to give 10% or more than 10%. 10% seemed to be the minimum that they were expected to give to Gospel Outreach and Pastor Lethbridge.
Still, investigators have no way of knowing whether finances, church-related or otherwise, play any role in Tim's disappearance. With no new information, the search for Tim Carney begins to look bleak.
What makes it disturbing is you have a whole lot of questions, but we don't really have any answers, nor do we have a way to find those answers because there are no leads.
Coming up, witnesses say they've seen Tim. But is it him? And is he in danger?
He seemed very tense and very nervous.
25-year-old Tim Carney has always loved mystery novels. And after vanishing on September 28, 2004, some evidence suggests that Tim may have written himself into a mystery of his own creation. Police find Tim's wallet and car within 1 week of his disappearance. They establish that neither the wallet nor his car show signs of foul play. Then, a man looking like Tim appears on bank surveillance footage, withdrawing nearly all the money in Tim's checking account. With hopes that Tim might still be nearby, the Carney family works tirelessly to find him.
I was passing out flyers, various businesses and restaurants along Route 23, the corridor where Tim would drive his car to and from work.
About 3 weeks after Tim disappears, the flyers pay off. On October 21st, police receive a call from employees at the Terminal 1 bar. It's about a 10-minute drive from Newark Airport and the construction site where Tim's car was abandoned. They report that somebody matching Tim's description has been seen at the bar in recent weeks. Ignacio Pinto, the owner of Terminal 1 bar, remembers the man on the flyer specifically for what he didn't do.
He never consumed any alcohol, which is one of the reasons that it stood out to me. I mean, being the owner, I'm looking for people to always be drinking. He drank water every time.
Apparently, he also drew attention for being an unusually reserved bar patron.
What I remember about him the most is really the look in his eyes. Like he had a lot of inner turmoil, and he had a lot of stuff that he was just, you know, in his mind that he was thinking about. I mean, most people come to a bar, they come to sort of, you know, let loose, and he was anything but that. His look, his energy was saying, leave me alone. He seemed very tense and very nervous.
If this was Tim, he didn't seem to be a man on the run.
He didn't look like somebody that was homeless. He was fairly well dressed. He wasn't dirty in any way, but he was always dressed the same. A pair of slacks and a buttoned shirt. Sort of office wear. Looking back now, I think he was just killing time more so than anything. I think he probably didn't have any other place to go to, and this was sort of a place for him to spend some time.
Ignacio recalls clearly the last time the Terminal 1 bar had a visit from the man he identifies from the flyer.
We had a problem with him, which I believe was the last time that we saw him here.
After keeping to himself for about 2 weeks, the normally quiet customer shows a sudden change in attitude toward a female bartender when he accuses her of stealing his wallet.
He caused a ruckus because the bartender said, you know, look, you gonna buy a drink or not? And then he accused the bartender of stealing his wallet and just making a scene at the bar.
My bartender wanted him thrown out because he was rude. It said something that was inappropriate, and he tried to reach and grab her. We just asked him to leave. He left. He didn't really put up a fight. He just took off. And we never saw him after that.
The report of this incident leaves the Carney family concerned about Tim.
He's not a confrontational person. He didn't like fighting with his sister. He didn't like fighting with anyone.
That's not the Tim that we know. I don't know if he was doing that to bring attention to himself, that he wanted to be found.
With the unusual sightings of Tim, the Carneys considered the frightening thought that perhaps he might not be able to find his way home.
We were thinking at that point he might have hit his head. Maybe he didn't know who he was. We went everywhere we could think of, because if something did happen and he didn't know who he was, I'm sure your whole personality changes.
The Carneys continue their search, hoping Tim might still be within reach.
We gathered a team, and every day, every night, there were teams working on different things. And one team would go out to homeless shelters or hospitals or supermarkets to put up flyers, and others would go to just local businesses and just people on the street.
Ed Carney believes that despite Tim's education and intellectual strengths, he would be no match for a life on the streets.
He's not streetwise. He would be taken advantage of so easily. If he had to live on the streets, I just don't see him surviving.
2 weeks after Tim Carney vanishes, his family must face a sad reality. Tim is really gone.
We went to go clean out his apartment because his lease, it was up. I think it was particularly difficult for my parents. My sister and I kept having to reassure them that everything would be okay. It was just stuff. It really didn't matter. What mattered is finding him and bringing him home, not how many shirts he had in his closet or what was on his coffee table.
10 months pass before a new development emerges in Tim's case. When private investigator Al Schumann is canvassing the area around the Terminal 1 bar, he uncovers a lead. Employees at a deli near the bar say they spotted Tim 2 to 3 months earlier, in the spring after his disappearance.
That particular deli was a real find. They definitely identified him by his photographs. He frequented that place 2 or 3 times.
The man usually bought a soda. It's another purchase that makes Al confident this could be Tim.
He bought a phone card, which would explain no further cell phone calls from or to anyone.
However, further searches of the area come up empty. The investigation hits a wall.
Unfortunately, there are so many variables of what could have happened to him, although I think that he has chosen his own destiny. And that is why we do not have any lead information to find him. Being a mother, I imagine it is probably one of the most difficult things that this family has had to deal with, not knowing what happened to their son. One way or the other, the family needs some type of closure to move on with their own lives.
Since the week of Tim's disappearance that autumn in 2004, the Carneys never hear from Pastor Lethbridge or any other members of Gospel Outreach. Still, upon investigation, detectives find no connection between Gospel Outreach and Tim's disappearance. Both Pastor Lethbridge and Gospel Outreach have denied that their congregation practices excessive control or financial impropriety.
None of their actions are a crime. Our investigation never led us to believe that any part of the congregation was party to Mr. Carney being missing. In itself, being part of a religious group is not a crime. What they teach is not a crime, and people have a right to choose what they want to believe in.
As the weeks turn into months and then years, Tim's family hopes he is still safe somewhere, but wrestle with the possibility that they may never see their would-be writer son again.
Never did we dream that it would be going on 6 years.
It's the little things that you really miss the most. It's waking up on Christmas and not being together as a family. Seeing all of our stockings come off the fireplace and his just there.
Every single day is hard, but you know, you just have to get up. You have to go to work. There's just stuff that you have to do. You don't want to do it. You want to stay under the covers and hide, but you can't. I hope he's well. It's the not knowing that's what's the big puzzle. That's what hurts.
Thank you for watching